Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for January 28th, 2014. I'm Rob Garrity. I'm the chairman of the board. To my right is Scott Bugby, our vice chair. To my left is Jim Lehan, our clerk. We're joined today by our ever-faithful executive assistant, Marion Harrington, and what the heck, we'll call you acting town administrator Scott Bragg.
Yeah, there you go.
Just to rile people, see who's watching. I must advise everyone that tonight this meeting is audio and video taped. We're running against the State of the Union and the State of the State, so I'm sure we'll all be DVR'd avidly. So in the absence of Mr. Hathaway, who's out this evening, I will read the agenda. We have a call to order at 7. At 7:15, Chief Bushnell, 7 o'clock, Mr. Bragdon will be here to discuss some policies. Chief Bushnell will be here at 7:15 to discuss the fire budget. Bob McGee, our DPW superintendent, will be here at DPW director will be here at 7:45, and we will not be having a discussion about the airport property this evening. We'll have a town administrator report, possibly, if we have a town administrator come. And we have some action items, discussion items, a Jane and Paul's committee update, and acceptance of minutes. We will be going into an executive session this evening. So, Scott, you're here.
I am here.
So let's talk some policies. What do you got?
Excellent. So here, you have seen these, but let me pass these out, and we'll go through them quickly.
One of each?
I have copies.
Oh, you have copies, okay.
I'm all set.
I got copies. We
Okay.
can put those for the record.
Okay, excellent.
I didn't print my copy. I read it and
Beautiful.
no questions.
So there's 3 different policies. 2 are changes, 1 is new. Starting with the Hackney policy, it's a very simple update. We realized when we were doing the renewals this year that we didn't have the right timing in there for people to get their vehicles re-inspected by the police department. So we've just put in there that prior to coming for their renewal each year, they will go to the police and get their car re-inspected. Doesn't cost them anything. It just makes sure that they've continued to have all the safety equipment that they're required to do. So that's the only change in the policy. I've done an updated sexual harassment policy for the town of Norfolk. I should say that this wording is exactly comes off the state website with the additions of the town names. So it is their recommended policy. It is not in tone is not different than what we had, but each year there are some changes in case law and other things that require us to update this law. I will be doing prior to the July timeframe. We'll be doing some training around town hall and preventing sexual harassment in the workplace.
Will this be a mandatory training for all employees?
It will be a mandatory training. That's correct. So that's the nature of that. The third policy is actually a new policy. Some other towns have this, some don't.
Yep.
But it's designed really to increase the safety for people who have liquor licenses and serve liquor in this town, to keep our underage people safe and make sure that people who are serving this alcohol or selling it understand the requirements around drunk driving and serving people who are under the influence. There is state-mandated training that people must take who serve or sell alcohol. This policy requires them to do that training every 3 years, which is what is required by the state. It also requires them to post where they have their licenses, a list of everybody in their establishment who is trained and the date of training, so that when the police go in on their inspections, it's something that is there that they can review, and Marion can get that list each year when she's looking at renewing the liquor licenses, so that we know that people are properly trained. So that is the purpose of this policy.
That would be a new policy.
This would be a new policy. That's correct. So it would be something that we'd have to go out and explain to the license holders. I don't think it's a lot of heavy lifting. I mean, this is training they should be doing. They should be documenting it anyway. So this is, we don't stipulate some highly creative format they have to do. It's just fairly basic of what sheet they have to keep and what information they have to have on it, which is very basic, and it can be trained.
Oh, Marion's got a question before I get to ask.
I just wanted to say that all liquor licenses do have a
condition on it that the staff has to be tips trained. They've had that for a lot of hours.
So that would just be so they dictate which training, so number 2, is that they have to just have tips or?
There is,
Well, what
there
if
are
it's a
several,
package store? They don't have to be tips
Anybody
trained.
selling liquor has to be tips trained.
Right.
And it's always been a condition, we just haven't really been strict about enforcing it. So we've done a policy to do that.
right.
Yeah.
There are several different types of, sources of training. Tips is one of them. And those are laid out in here. Those are all approved by the state, so all of them are
Any one of
okay.
these,
We
but-
don't care which one they do. They need to do one of these.
But then Marion just said the liquor license requires tips, so is
Well,
it, yeah?
tips was the only one at the
Oh, okay.
time. Tips covers them all.
Tips is like saying Kleenex,
Okay.
the way we use it, so.
Okay.
Mr. Bugby?
Yeah, oh, sorry. And then another so since it's new to these folks, and even though they've probably been doing it, and it's thing like that, are we giving them, how much time are we giving them to comply, or is it at next renewal, or what are we doing?
No, we'll do it before then. What we'll do is I'll work with Chuck. Chuck has seen this. And we'll work with Chuck in making sure that we'll get the policy out there, give them some sample spreadsheets, and then we'll follow up to make sure that they understand it. So he and I will work that out. If he, he indicated that he would like to do that follow-up and talk to them, so that's fine with me. And so we'll roll it out and, set an enforcement date in a couple of months, I think. And again, I don't think it's a lot of heavy lifting.
Mr. Lehan, do you have anything?
No,
to add on
no, this is all familiar stuff, thank you.
I'm just having a process problem
Okay?
because it is a new policy and it does affect, a finite number of folks, but it affects them. From a process standpoint, I would have felt more comfortable with, a notice of the policy and then a hearing on the proposal and then a vote of the board. Because I'd hate to find out that we might have done something a little, more aggressive or something maybe we should have reconsidered later after we do it.
Well, we certainly could, take a step back and do that kind of a policy, or kind of a program and making sure we get the input. If I thought that it was controversial or a lot of work or, really putting a burden on them, I certainly would think that you are 100% right. If you feel from a process point of view we have to do that, or that is the right way to do it, then let's do it. But I don't think that this is something that they should be doing anyway. If Chuck goes in and asks them they have to have these people trained, they should be able to produce anyway what it is, who's been trained, who in their staff works there, and who's been trained.
So they
because
have to
is
do it now,
required.
but then we're just doing a
But-
policy, so I guess,
What this is requiring them is to put it on a piece of paper and have it posted.
as opposed to be verbally asked and then supposedly be able to
Or have them
reproduce it.
try
Yeah.
to find it and put it together or go through their records. So that is it. But I'll follow your lead.
And where did we steal this from?
Are you insinuating?
No,
You know,
where
one of the
did we
great
get guidance
change
from?
managers in human resources, his famous saying is "steal shamelessly."
Exactly.
So I
I'm in
did,
government, that's what we do.
I honestly don't remember. I did look up policies at various towns, and I did use pieces
Some
of
other
it in here.
town's policy, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't, again, I can be overly process-oriented, so I know that's my weakness. I'll take the temperature of the two other gentlemen here.
Well, Scott, let me kind of break this down into small bites. The only real distinction here is the posting and notification, the
That's
posting of the information.
That's correct.
So other than that, it is business as usual in terms of the requirements that are now in place. It's just that it hasn't been formalized in a document.
That's correct, and it will make our enforcement easier in that you can anybody can walk in and see where their licenses are, who is tip trained, and when that is expiring,
Yeah.
so they'll know. They don't have to
If I
go
may,
through and
Mr.
look through
Chairman.
paperwork.
I would concur that when you make policies, where you establish policies that are substantially changing what your current practice is, that has an impact on folks, that I think it's good to air that process in advance to be sure that you're not creating conflicts or it isn't well thought through. As I read this, I saw really only that one distinction, which I think they're required to do if requested anyway. So,
Yes.
and the other thing that I guess I feel is that the license is the privilege of the town. And so the requirements that we choose to put around that license are, again, the privilege of the town, and they're to serve the best interest of the town. And this change, to me, is very minor. I think it's a good thing that we have it documented. I think it's probably something we should have done before, even though it's been practice. Documentation always reinforces practice. So, while I agree philosophically in what you're saying, I think that the degree that we're involved here, I think we should just do it.
Do we currently require recertification every 3 years?
Three-
Yes.
Probably a
Recertification is
liquor
required
license
every.
requirement, you know, board.
That
Oh.
that is a state requirement.
Another state requirement is that the ABCC requires that we have the police department check all licenses before we renew them in November. And Chuck has no way of knowing when they go out there, or whoever goes out there, has no way of knowing if there's TIPS training or not without, like he said, getting into all the staff and the records, and the list is a lot easier for the guys.
Okay.
It certainly simplifies the enforcement process.
All right,
I'm fine with that, I agree. It's not a new, it's new part, I think, just putting it down on paper, the policy is kind of there.
Yeah, I guess one question, if I may, Mr. Chairman, as a new policy, we'd have to adopt it.
Correct.
Adopting and implementation are two different questions. Perhaps this should be implemented with the renewal of the license to allow people the opportunity to do it, so to speak. I mean, we don't have an overwhelming number of establishments, you know, so it's not like it's going to take us 6 days to get out to everybody. Actually, now that I think of it, we really don't have that many. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I rescind my question. It's not a big
all
deal.
right.
Just, we should adopt it and get on with it.
So, is there a motion on the floor?
I still move.
Second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded to adopt the new Town of Norfolk alcohol awareness policy. Is there any further discussion? Nope, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. So the amendment to the sexual harassment policy. And this is, again, do you know specifically where we might have updated some language?
The entire policy, I honestly, I cut and pasted out of the state thing, so I didn't go through it line by line. It's like the postings that we put out. They provide certain wording, and it is best to use that wording, so
But this replaces an existing policy.
that it replaces an existing policy. Chances are, I will come to you at most every couple of years with a similar request, because the certain.
I was afraid you were going to say, come to you every couple of years with a complaint.
No, never. God wouldn't.
Bad. Any further questions on this one?
No, no further questions.
Okay. Any motions?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made to adopt the sexual harassment, changes to the sexual harassment policy of the town of Norfolk as prepared by Mr. Bragdon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That's adopted. All right, our Hackney vehicle policy.
So again, the real change here is that there is a requirement to have your vehicle re-inspected, except it's mid-year, which makes no sense. So we want it done just in December, prior to the license being renewed. So they'll come in with the piece of paper that says their vehicle's been re-inspected, and then Marion will go through the process of.
This one where it says the prior to the annual inspection, is that
Exactly.
the part that's changed?
Right. So that's the only change
That's
in
an
the policy.
addition?
is-
Oh, no, change, you just changed, not
change.
addition, right.
The
so
old,
it's
the old
just a-
policy had it in mid-year, which makes no sense. I don't know who put that together.
Are they, other than the renewal, are they subject to inspection, like if someone receives a complaint or we get a
Absolutely.
citizen or someone says, I don't think the brakes work or the meters, it seems funky, can we then require them to come in for an inspection? Or can the
Yes.
chief or someone?
Yes.
Okay.
Any of those things. The meters, we don't have our own weights and measures
Okay.
individuals, so the state inspects those and seals the meters.
Okay, but if there was just an issue, then, so it's not like just, we can't only look at them on an annual basis?
Look at them anytime you want.
Okay.
I got a problem with the dress code.
With the dress code?
Yeah.
In the policy or in
Yeah,
general?
In the policy.
It's already been there, now you want to change that too? Okay.
Well, I mean, Bishop O'Malley couldn't be a taxi driver in the town of Norfolk.
Why, because he wears a collar?
He wears
or-
sandals. He's a, I forgot what the name of the order is.
Franciscan monk, or Franciscan friar, right? Isn't he Franciscan?
I don't know if it's Francis, but yeah, I mean,
If he applies, we'd certainly make an exception on a religious basis.
It's for safety too. I think they, the registry, I know the kids when they drive, right, they frown on wearing flip-flops too. I'm not sure it's a law, or it's just, I know the kids, the young drivers are afraid to wear flip-flops.
this is like, okay, so this was blatant thievery, because no one in 2013 would write a regulation that calls for suitably dressed.
In trousers.
Suitably dressed?
Suitably dressed and in trousers. It's like those old,
Right.
you can tell the old employment
Pants.
statutes that have, good moral character requirements, and they kind of they cut that after a while. All right.
Been in there. So
Is there
that
a
wasn't
motion
changed.
about this?
So moved.
All right, thank you. Second?
Sure.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the change in this utterly contemptuous and anti-First Amendment Hackney policy. All those in favor say
I have
aye.
a question.
Aye.
Oh,
no.
oh, sorry.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Oh, well.
I don't remember us in the old policy, and I obviously missed it, that we stipulated the rates that could be charged. Now, is that arbitrary on our part, or is there a state mandate as to
There's
what?
not a state mandate. At the time, I went out and looked at rates that other towns were looking at.
Yeah.
I do remember discussing
Yeah, we
it
do.
here.
Yeah, I just don't remember it.
But, yeah, but we...
Occasionally things slip out.
No, that's okay.
This one slipped out.
So I did look at other towns and what they were charging, and with the city of Boston, obviously, which is higher, but with the various towns, and then I with Jack kind of just selected a rate that we
All right, that's,
voted on.
I just didn't remember it.
We were also going to periodically test this stuff.
I haven't done that.
Yeah.
Well, we should do that. You're right.
Yeah.
Check the
I'll
clothing.
do that.
Well, but,
No,
make sure they show up.
But yeah, call them and see if when they show up, make sure their vehicle looks right.
I know one of the companies did not show up last summer when my daughter had to
was the
get to
first
work
time,
and didn't
yeah.
have a car, so.
Been a while, I think, since
All
they
right.
maybe tested either.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Thank you, Scott. It didn't hurt so much, did it?
It wasn't painful.
No, it wasn't painful.
Could I give-
And Scott, you're doing an excellent job as our HR director.
Oh, thank
you. I want to reverse my snide comment earlier of assistant town administrator, just because certain people who I love who have a problem with me saying that. So anyway, thank you for the work you've done. Thank you for these policies.
Thank you.
It's the kind of thing when I became a selectman 6 years ago, and you look at the policies adopted in like 1978, and it's nice to see.
You were
know,
looking at
this
the current
changing
list.
over. Yeah, well, that's what I mean, yeah. I mean, they were
Hey.
sitting around forever.
Yeah.
So you've done a great job. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Could I give you a couple very quick updates?
Sure.
A couple of things. One, I want to let you know that we've been continuing another good year on the liability insurance front. We've gotten almost $20,000 in rebates this year based on audits and other things. And I'm hoping when they do their profit sharing that we'll get an additional set of cash from them. The school department just got approved for a grant from them to do safety training for the students. And they're continuing some of the other training programs that I and others have attended. So,
Great.
matter of fact, we're working with their EAP to hopefully do some first aid training down at DPW. So I'll keep you informed on that. The other thing, Scott certainly knows this, but we've begun our formal search and interviewing process for the town planner that was approved at town meeting and funded for the first of the year. We got 23 resumes in, which there is a committee that it's made up of people, Scott and plus people from the boards, Jack and myself, the land use boards, and we have reviewed those. We're doing our interviews this week. We'll have, I expect on Thursday in open session, we'll make a decision on which candidates, and we're hoping to send you guys 2 to 3 candidates for your own interview. So prior to that, we'll talk about what process you want to use, and I think we've got some good experience in those resumes, so hopefully we've got some good people.
Excellent. Okay, well,
All right?
thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Bushnell, forgive us, we're running a little behind. So why don't you approach the bench and,
Raise your right hand.
are you ready?
Look at you. Gimby.
That's right.
minute too is good.
It'll take a minute.
Yeah, that's it.
How are you, Chief?
Well, how about yourself, sir?
Thank you.
That was a pleasure to see 3 smiling faces on Tuesday night. It warms the cockles, so to speak.
That's interesting.
You got to turn on the.
I did.
You got it on the.
That could have been very embarrassing.
You know, you flip to the left. You know how to do that. On the bottom set of icons, you go left instead of right. Yeah. No, I know, but
I'd call Eileen.
no, she's all on top of this.
Eileen doesn't let me touch this at home.
Probably a good thing. I do the same. I stick to the basic TV on, off, channel up, channel down, and DVR every once in a while if I feel brave.
Technology saves so much time.
It
It's
does.
much more efficient.
Yeah. Sorry, brought the hard copy.
So how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well.
Excellent.
What yourself?
I couldn't be better. How's the basketball team in Connecticut?
Well, they're playing as we speak. They're probably about a quarter of the way through the first half in Philadelphia tonight. We're playing Temple.
Oh, Temple, okay.
So how far behind are they now?
Pardon?
Ding, ding, ding. I assume they're undefeated again, like usual, typical for those girls.
Yeah, but there's a lot. That Notre Dame team looks really, really strong this year.
That girl, the point guard, or whatever, that good person, graduated though, right? I'm sure they have a bench, right?
Diggins,
She was
Diggins,
great.
Diggins was a lot of sizzle. She
No.
was no.
You should do a college basketball minute on cable. I'm sure. Christine
Oh, I would love to do that. I have so
We
much
have the
fun
hockey
doing
thing. We have the hockey on the cable. Yeah, do the,
There you go. All right, so
it. Okay.
here you
for-
are.
Just let me know when.
Okay, no problem. The budget moving forward for 14-15 for the fire department really has one big issue that we want to bring forward, and that's to visit or revisit the infamous 13th position. During the summer, I had a chance to come before the board, provided a number of documents, a lot of information, and the direction of the board was to continue discussions with Jack. During the summer, we had a number of different meetings. Jack had Scott sit in a number of times. We had the fire officers involved, met several times. And certainly don't want to steal any of Jack's comments, but one of the things that coalesced from all of our discussions was that there truly wasn't a silver bullet. But we felt that the original premise that we brought forward during the summer of having 3 additional call staff and the 13th position was probably the best of all the options that we looked at, and we really turned everything upside down. Scott came forward with a proposition that we look at increasing call staff each year. But one of the things I just want to talk about is the bullet points on the slide, and the way that we look at it in terms of trying to balance the staff in our recalls is really the central point of the middle of the slide. Talking about the fiscal dynamics. Unfortunately, the more people we have, which is a good thing, ends up having us pay out more when they respond. So that the balancing act that we've tried to over the years take care of there is to triage the calls and to find a middle ground, which has worked out fairly well. Our recalls, our variables go hand in hand with the $36,000 that the board graciously extended to us last year to ensure that we try to maintain the minimum 3 staffing 24/7. And each time the ambulance transports gives us an opportunity to bring staffing back into the station. While that program is ironclad, it is solid, it's tried and true. We got the variables that go hand in hand with it. We got the residence location, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Family obligations become a big issue. People with second jobs. For instance, we have one of our career staff who not only works for us the average 42-hour work week, but is also working for 2 private ambulance companies. He just purchased a home and wants to make sure he can make his payments. We have, unfortunately, motivation. We could perhaps drive a chauffeur limousine to staff to bring him back in, and that might not be beneficial. And the economy, while a downturn in the Dow on Wall Street recently has shown to the contrary, I mean, when the economy is good, our people like to vacation. And that's certainly well within their realm and their off-duty time and their contractual time. The problem we run into with the impact is just having adequate staffing, the delay of service, lost revenue, we can't get the ambulance out, and most of all, safety. A couple Saturdays ago on the 18th, the deputy chief was working. During that period of time, on the 24 hours, they did 13 calls. Out of the 13 calls, there was 7 ambulance runs, 2 of which couldn't be staffed by Norfolk. We had mutual aid in. That was about a $2,000 dip in revenue that we lost on it. But most importantly, every time the ambulance left Norfolk, we didn't get a recall, and he was left here by himself. And that became an issue. Over the Christmas holidays, when I was in Connecticut, we had problems with recall. There was one instance where we were responding mutual aid to Franklin for a multiple alarm fire. The deputy called me on the cell phone and asked if I would coordinate fire protection here in Norfolk from Connecticut for a short period of time. And those are the nuances that go hand in hand with the system, with not being able to get some of the people back. We've been effective when we've done one-on-one with some of the staff to ask them to come in. But we have to be careful with that from the standpoint that while they're engaged and they're well franchised with the department, there comes a time when people want to have a life separate from that of their place of employment. So you have to be careful and you have to respect that as you look at it. Rob pointed out last year that he said that specifically that he never wanted to be the second call. He always, if God forbid it needed it, he wanted to be the first call. The 13th person that we look at is really bringing that person on in January. We wanted to be as fiscally conservative as possible in our proposal, which would come down to about $23,850. There's a startup cost that we'll talk about a little bit later when I run through this. And one of the things I wanted to contrast that with is we've brought on one new call member in July. One of the conversations that we had with Jack was perhaps seeing if we could get people to come in and volunteer their time and train with us for a period of time. We had a member come forward, a candidate come forward who was unemployed at the time, averaged between 16 and 20 hours a week with us since July, and that person will become turnkey with our operation starting in March. She's finished her EMT. She's completed all her fire recs, and we'll be able to put her on the line to respond to all incidents, including the ambulance staffing and recalls, which is going to be a big help. We're able to accomplish that simply because we don't have a lot of the recalls in terms of personnel coming back. And even when we do a full recall for mutual aid for a structure fire in Norfolk or serious incident, we're still averaging the 3 to 4, which was a far cry from 2004 when we were getting better than 8 or 9 people coming back in. So we're able to manage that fairly well and do the absorption. You hate to say it's absorption, but that's the reality of the situation. Startup costs for doing that with call staff is still significant. So the $15,000, almost $16,000 involved with that. The biggest part of the call staff is obviously the training element of what we do with them. How are we going to train them? We were lucky on this one particular person because we were able to get her scheduled up with the deputy chief shift most of the time, and we were able to come up with a training outline that we could use with all the shifts, and we could integrate her into that. But we still look back at the Call Firefighter Academy, 240 hours. It's tough. It's 3 nights a week on a Saturday. Otherwise, basically, it's a year to train call staff coming in. And I think when the board approved with us 2 years ago to bring in the new call hires, one of which is now career staff, one of which is no longer with us, and we have a third that we're still determining, what the future of that particular position will be with the department. It's a drain. I mean, the bottom line with the career staff is we're not really paying to train them, particularly in this 13th position, because if we're fortunate enough to move forward with it. even if we have to send that position to the academy, to the recruit school, we're not replacing it. So there isn't a cost involved with that. Maestro. One of the questions that Jim asked when we had a meeting, and Jim did come into one of our meetings as liaison, he said, okay, obviously we're going to have a cost savings here somewhere. So what I want to talk you through this, it's a little bit of information, but it took 4 months and analyzed all the EMS calls, and we showed that out of that group, there was 230, and we took 13% out of that, which was the refusals, where no transports or no callbacks were needed. Then we broke that number down to the calls that took place between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., which is our highest workload period. And that broke it down to 136 calls. If we can extrapolate, we talked about the 13% for refusals. It gets that number down to 118 transports. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to show an analysis of when we have the high end of our employee scale and the low end of the employee scale coming back. So for a 1 year for the 2 firefighters coming in, the recalls are, as you can see, 23, a little over 23 and 20,000. If you project that over the cost of the entire year, it's 70,000 versus 60,000. Moving ahead in our recall coverage for the ambulance, the real number we finally found is in that 60,000 range, which means the 36 that was approved by the board last year, midstream, we're augmenting by not 12,000, but actually 24,000 to make that go. So you get an idea that these numbers kind of reflect where we stand. What we wanted to do is we wanted to show what it would take if we're only talking 1 firefighter in there. So the number, we can reduce that 70 and that 60 down to 35 and 30. And we wanted to take that number and subtract it from a 1-year cost of a new hire to show a basic savings in there. On a high side, a little over 12, and a low projection in terms of the recall to 17. We wanted to refine it one more step because we wanted to make sure the onion was pared as much as we could. And as we talked about, if we're able to get to the 13th hire, the 13th hire would encompass a 4-day work week, or 57% of the week. So we culled that number down further. So on the high side, if we have the higher salaried people coming back in, it's about a little over 27,000 and 31,000 on the low projection. Caution one thing on these numbers. 13th hire comes in. The 13th hire is going to be a position that either is going to live in Norfolk, be contiguous, and be available to respond, hopefully with not a lot of family obligation. This is a staff position that we need to ensure is going to be there when the tone hits. That's the most important aspect of it. We're looking for someone young and uncommitted at that point. To do so, obviously, we're going to have to compensate that person for the recall. So when you look at the savings number, some of that number is going to evaporate in terms of the recall status of that position. But that's a thumbnail sketch of where we stand in terms of just those dollars, so you have an idea. Hit the next slide.
I'm very glad our HR director wasn't here when you said you're looking for a young unmarried person.
Can I ask a question before we move on, or do you want to let him finish?
Sure. Yeah.
Because you had mentioned earlier on about the transfer, like when you have to refuse, there's revenue lost revenue potential because mutual aid ambulance. So of these 118 transports, are those, I don't want to say profitable, but those always generate some revenue. So if we
Our average on a billing for any ambulance transport is about $1,000. Now, if you take the combination of the ALS, the BLS calls, it comes out to about $1,000. And our collections, I mean, if you looked at what we do on a course of a year, our annual average is around 625 transports. Our best year was, I think last year we brought in just under 345,000. So you get an idea of what the discrepancy is in terms of what insurance rates are. We do some collection on those, but we try to keep that to a minimum, simply because we're not looking to dog people from the standpoint of going beyond what their insurance has to offer. We try to stay pretty close to that. But you get an idea of what the insurance company is not paying for in terms of overall transports these days.
So then money left on the table, so you've missed something. So would you have any idea then, like how many, because again, we had to go from each other. You said we transports we weren't able to do because the people didn't come back. We didn't have enough staff to do that second transport, if you will?
Up
Not
until,
big, yeah.
up until the Christmas holiday, I believe the number, we only lost 4 last year. I mean, the callback really paid off. I mean, we didn't have incidents, and those primarily were third ambulance call.
Oh,
So
yeah, it's
both
not even a second,
both
okay.
ambulances are tied up. We've run out of trucks, and at that point, we've got to bring somebody in. That was probably, last year was the best year we had in terms of not losing calls. I mean, that without question.
Thank you.
Cole,
Yep.
how many did you lose due to mutual aid?
Last year,
When you were out, when you were on mutual aid, how many second calls came in? Do you
we're,
know?
the 20% is actually creeping up. We're getting closer to 22%. And one of the things that works out better for us is because we're very conscious of that line item we have in the budget. So anytime that we have a subsequent call after a coverage comes in, we put that right up into the fire call, because then from there it goes from the 2-hour, which was negotiated with the union, up to a 3-hour. By doing that, the other thing that we do is we're still not calling people back. Has that become an issue and a problem? I don't know, but you have to believe that in terms of losing the overall numbers, the volume coming back, and it probably plays a role, but there has to be a point where I have to be the responsible adult in managing this from the standpoint, along with the deputy, that we can't have it both ways. And we're trying to do is to continue the triage and continuing managing the calls on that basis. So, as I said, that when the ambulance goes out, 2 people come in, we try to make sure that we do every possible call we can do without doing additional recalls, and it's been fairly effective. I think overall, I'm optimistic. It'll be our second turn in February. We'll turn our anniversary on the program, and hopefully we continue to see the benefit of it. But it's interesting that the number of calls are the second calls, for whatever reason, seem to be going up.
Yeah, I know one of the things that you've talked about many times, it's more than just the fiscal considerations, it's also the time. Just the pure time.
Yep.
And then when you get into a mutual aid call, especially if it's a secondary call here in Norfolk and it becomes a mutual aid call, there's a significant time differential, 2 minutes to say 10 minutes, something like that.
And that's a huge issue. I mean, we've talked about that time and time again, and we talked about it in terms of fire response, and we've given you the empirical data on that, and we've shown you the difference of having to wait for the mutual aid ambulance. You're talking 15 to 20 minutes. I mean, that's the window that we try to close by this coverage. And in our business, unfortunately, it's compression of time and distance, and that's the only way we can do it, is keeping the staff in the station. And,
May I ask one more question too? Sure. I know in the discussions we've had about this, the 13th firefighter really does play 2 roles for you. It not only deals with the callback consideration, but it also deals with your daily coverage situation.
correct.
And can you just touch on that a little bit? I mean,
I think, and I'm glad you did, because I didn't include that in the PowerPoint.
I know.
Jeff.
That's why I'm asking you to touch on it.
It was a great prompt.
This is softball for you.
Once.
But it's an important softball because it
The
does
most
deal with-
important aspect of this is there are going to be 4 days each week where there'll be 4 people on duty during the day. Ambulance transports, you only need the 1 call back. Should a second call come in, and it has happened where we're doubled up, we don't have to wait, because there are 4 people there. There are 2 ambulances, 4 people staff the 2 ambulances, and they're out the door. Our posture has always been handle the call that has been given to us, and don't worry about the subsequent call. We can only handle what we know. We can't handle the unknown. So if we end up in a situation where I'm in Connecticut and there are 4 people on, and they go out, the last person going out the door has to make sure with dispatch there's either people coming back to backfill them or mutual aid's coming to cover. But it's a time and distance compression, and that's a huge benefit, to be able to say that we can staff 4 days a week 2 ambulances without any hesitation. That's a huge advantage.
When you go to the advisory board, I would be sure you incorporate that in that, because I agree with you. I mean, in our discussions, that's a critical component to this.
It's kind of like a game changer, really, in a sense, because like I said, 2 calls immediately out the door, 4 days a week. It would be nice if we could afford it 7 days a week, but at least, if you have your busiest times during the week.
Well, you deal with this stuff long enough, and you become so myopic, and you
Yeah.
lose the big picture. This is just an overview of the hiring costs associated. Unfortunately, we're the people that have the most toys and the biggest toys, the most expensive toys. And anytime you put fire in front of a piece of equipment in terms of its nomenclature, it's more expensive. We can bring clerical people into town. There isn't really any upfront cost. The DPW, and I talked this over with Bob, you're talking about a physical as we bring a DPW employee on board. Talking with Deputy Chief Carroll, the police, when they update their police staff, most of these people are coming from the reserve, where they've already received their training, they've already been equipped, and they're looking at, as Deputy Chief said, basically a $2,000 turn. Unfortunately, when we bring them in, if we go career, it's over $8,000, and the call firefighter is about $8,000. We have to be so careful and very, very selective when we're looking particularly at the call staff because of the upfront costs. We don't have the inventory of clothing that we can hand out. We're to the limit on our portable radios, our pagers, and this is broken down into really the three segments. The first segment, the bottom's cut off, but the first segment, the total is just shy of $5,000, and those are the pieces of equipment that are tantamount importance for bringing someone on board. That's what happens when you send stuff by email, how it gets crunched like that. But anyway, the second group are things that are needed, but sometimes we can make that work. And the last column are the items that are involved in actually working on the job. And some of the things, just for instance, on the clothing, all the clothing items, when we bring call staff on, is we try to make sure they at least have one of each, because their workload's not going to be as great as the career staff. What we've done in the past, and we haven't really brought on a large number of people, but what we've done in the past is we rely on our fire prevention account, which is our donation account from the community. We do pull from that. We try to watch what's in our expenses and supplies to see if we could come out. The town of Franklin has been very helpful. They've provided us with turnout gear, and we've used their turnout gear. The things that we actually have to do, we have to make sure that people have fitting boots when they come in. And they have to have their physical and the PAT, and those are pretty much fixed cost all the way down the line. One of the issues that, and Jack isn't here to follow up on it, but one of the issues that's been talked about moving forward in the coming fiscal year is to put an article in place for the hiring of the two call firefighters and having the fixed one-time costs come from that, as opposed to making a budgetary. It's something that Jack looked at. He was very enthusiastic of, and it's an outside of the box approach, and I think what it does is it alleviates the pressure on us to try to get some of the funding extracted from a budget and ensure that we have people coming in that are ready to work. I mean, the one problem again that goes hand in hand with this is just our selectivity. We have to make so sure that the people that we're investing in are people that are going to remain with us, particularly on the call side, because that's a huge dollar number to go for people who are basically non-scheduled, generally have jobs during the day, and we're depending on them for nights and weekends for coverage. So there it is in black and white. It's something that Jim has talked about in the past. That we always talked about doing something so at least there was a visual on it.
So, sorry. Chief, so I mean, obviously I get boots because it's not one size fits all. So none of the stuff in the first column of the PA physical is reusable if that person, the call staff, doesn't work out. Can I assume stuff in the middle, maybe?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
So you're not always
Yes.
sinking that cost necessarily.
That middle is
In the far.
truly a flex cost just based upon what the equipment's there. The last grants that we've gotten through the federal government, we did flashlights, we did helmets, and that was based on the number of 20. Some of that equipment has degraded, has gone past its life, has been used. So the numbers fluctuate in there. If we were to bring in the 13th position, we would probably do some absorption in terms of turnout gear because now we have a line item in there. We can do some of that. Some of that will be outside. And those are going to be things that we have to manage ourselves moving forward. But we thought it was very important that the board and the viewing public could see in terms of what the expenses that goes hand in hand with a firefighter, whether it's a career position or a call position. This is the stunning graphic right here. This is the response quantifiers. We have basically seven staff that reside in Norfolk. That's excluding myself. We have 8 in the surrounding communities, 1 in Foxborough, 3 in Franklin, 2 in Rentham, and 2 in Walpole. That group is the group that we depend on to provide our coverage as we move on to both staffing when the ambulance is gone, and also, more importantly, when we have a serious incident. We have 2 people that reside outside the adjoining communities that do participate, and then we have 2, obviously, that live in distances that can't really come back. That's the 19 staff that we have. We have 19 now, as I said, because we've added 1 call firefighter we absorbed in our budget. I hate to overuse the word absorb, but that's where we stand. 2004, when I joined you, we had 25 on staff. Of course, the complexion in terms of career and call was much different then. It was 8 career and then 17 call. Flipping this over now, we're 12 career and 7 calls where we are. But that's a tough number. The board asked last time that when we brought call staff on to do our very best to make sure that the staffing came from Norfolk. The individual that we have put on is a Walpole resident who lives over the border, who is actively looking for, and we'll put an advertisement out, looking for rental property in the town of Norfolk as we speak. So, that's the quantifier there. Just drill 2 quick ones just to follow up here. This is 5 years. This is fire and EMS all across the board, 5 years of data. Statistically, no difference exists between any of the days. Our days are relatively flat. You could possibly project that Saturday is a low day, although Saturdays lately have seemed to be more and more busy. But that's a 5-year look at the data. And then the final slide is just on the overall listing of time of day. 65% of our workload, both fire and EMS, and there's a typo in the top. 65% of our workload takes place between 8 in the morning and 6 o'clock at night. That corresponds to how we split our shifts for the career staff. If someone's taking a time off, they take it off either a 10 and 14-hour block, a 10-hour day from 8A to 6P, or a 14-hour night from 6P to 8A, and that's how we equate our operation. The thing we look at here is the biggest workload is when most of the community is not here. Our biggest potential risk and our danger factor that we worry about is the night hours when all the homes and all the beds are occupied. That's where we're worried the most, and that's why we've stressed, particularly over the last 2 years now, to assess ourselves at a minimum staffing of 3 people. Just one last quantifier on the. Yeah, I'm sorry. Scott.
No, so these people, would this be representative of like towns like ours, like the Random's Plainville, this 8 to 6 type of, generally speaking?
I would say yes without having the data in front, but I'm pretty sure that we're seeing. I don't think our day data matches up because we don't have a limited access highway, don't have a true major downtown center, nor do we have healthcare facilities, and those are the 3 things I've said over the years that really skew.
We don't have a downtown center. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
Well,
lovely
I
one.
walk-
Chief. The roundabouts cause
I
no
sit at
accidents.
that gazebo more than anyone else in the community. So. The last thing, just want to mention about the infamous 13th position, and I said to Jack that I would do this. Jack's one comment, one criticism was, all right, this is the 13th person, when's the 14th person? And the Deputy Chief Pete Petrucci sat in on that particular meeting, and I think he said it the best. In all honesty, we don't know. As growth continues in terms of homes being built, facilities, particularly the 1A potential on the Southwood property, it all impacts everyone across the board, and we're just like any of the other agencies. I think, the 9 years that I've served for you, I think that if nothing else, that we've developed a true program to utilize our personnel to the best of our advantage and to keep those numbers as low as we possibly can. I think now, this is my own personal opinion, is we tied ourselves down a little tight, and we're starting to see some of the problems. Again, just to revisit Jack's comment about the silver bullet, is the 13th position the magic elixir to this problem? Of course not. It's a big part of it, but it's a part that's going to impact the biggest part of what it is that we do on a daily basis. So that's my my dog and pony show for the 13th position.
Any questions, Jim?
No, just a comment. I mean, what would you say, Cole? This is the 43rd time we've probably done this analysis. And I say that not in jest, but in credit, because the strategy is a dynamic strategy. And when we originally started looking at this back in 2007, I think was the first year we started looking at the callback strategy.
It was 2004. You were in the meeting with Jack, who was
That's right.
who was
Sorry.
our fiscal officer.
Older than I thought.
And Pete Petruchik, who was a lieutenant at that time.
I remember. You know, the callback strategy made a lot of sense, and probably more financially practical. But as we've seen over the years, the weaknesses in that system, or flaws, I guess is a better way to say it, I think we've come back to the 13th, which we've weighed on many occasions. So I think you've done a great job in looking at this every possible way, and I commend you for that. I know you've done a lot of analysis on it, been part of a lot of those meetings, and I know the hard work that's gone into it. So, and I know there's no silver bullet, and you know, you're one of those departments that you know, probably is demanded 30% of the time that you're there, and that 30% is more critical than anything else that goes on in town.
Yep.
So.
And, you know, the day that they said they had the 13 runs on the 18th, the next 3 days was one call a day. There isn't a rhyme or reason to our business, unfortunately. We're either really busy or.
But you can't be on vacation when the call comes.
No, and I try my best.
No, I wasn't meaning that directly to you. But,
In general.
but somebody needs to answer the phone, is my point.
Just really quick, and here's our man. I haven't stolen any of your thunder. Welcome back. Good to see you. On the expenses and supplies, I mean, the rest of the budget just reflects the contractual. There is an extra $20,000 that was tucked into the fire call budget. That's tucked in there in the event that we add the 2 call people. That's their callback funding in there. The agreement that we had with Jack by putting that in there is, first of all, if it's approved by the boards and moves forward, and we get to town meeting and the article isn't approved, then obviously that $20,000 gets backed out of the budget right away. And I think that's, you know, certainly a fair way. On our expenses, the only increases on the expenses is our cost assessed by medical control. Dr. Geller at Norwood Hospital doubled. What's happening with that is there's a move afoot of possibly removing medical control from the hospital to a private entity, just because of how the hospital operates with the Stewart system. So we're preparing to move forward with that. And that's why that's being doubled. We may end up, there's a proposal for the Norfolk County Fire Chiefs to use Dr. Mike Volkanis, who's affiliated with Norwood Hospital, serves with us provisionally as a firefighter paramedic, to assume the position of EMS director for the region. And our funding would then, instead of being turned directly over to Dr. Geller, as we've done in the past, it would go to a community. Mike would be, or Dr. Volkanis would be an employee of that community. That would guarantee us at least 1 day a month minimum of having a doctor on board with us, riding on calls, basically being another staff person. The tremendous benefit. It was well received by the Norfolk County Fire Chiefs. Still in the exploration phase, but regardless, Andy has moved his fee ahead. Also, there was some confusion last year in the budget regarding the ambulance lease equipment. As you know, you approved the hydraulic stretcher, and we're still paying on the life packs, and the payments on those got crossed in between. So now they're incorporated directly into our budget at the correct dollar amount. So those are the only 2 increases on the expenses side of the house. We're the Marines. We adapt and overcome. Or at least we model ourselves after the
Well, actually, that's a really interesting thing to say, Cole, because you know, the rec should be getting. When will the rec be active, Jack?
2 years, probably, huh?
Probably 2 more years.
I think we need to plan now for it, because if we don't take this opportunity to fundamentally look at services and how we as 4 towns provide them, and why are we, if we're doing the rec, we're a town of 72,000 at that point, with 76 square miles.
Exactly.
You know, and I'm convinced that we can better move our on-call people, not our on-call, our on-duty people around to get the best service in the most efficient way.
The fire chiefs of the four impacted communities, we meet probably every other month on this topic. There is a foundation being laid. There are operational considerations being placed into progress. There's a lot of activity that we're doing behind the scenes. Jack's aware of everything that's going on out there, but we're probably in the only time I would think in the next few years as to having that opportunity to do that because of where all the chiefs are positioned, with the exception of the Plainville chief who just came on board. Age consideration, years served come into play, and to move this forward is certainly now if it's going to happen.
Yeah. Can't lose
Now, the police are also
opportunity.
having that discussion, too.
I'm not aware of what on that side.
All right, well, thank you. You got to change your name, too.
What's it got to change to
Well,
now?
You got to be rescue. I mean, you how many fires last year? 600 medical calls and how many fires?
Yeah, well, and most of those are false
Full-time
alarms.
medical service, part-time
We-
fire?
rescue.
We
is
had
the
we had a serious.
word.
Let the record show we had one serious fire last year.
Hopefully
You're
not
doing a
ever.
great job on prevention of
Yeah,
fire.
smokers better be proud.
Now-
Fire prevention is great, right?
Those guys do such a great job down there.
So Cole, you're killing my argument? Is that your?
I don't go. Come on.
He did
Well, it
well.
looks like you did well.
He did well. Don't offer any constructive criticism to this.
I can't argue with that.
I even have the handout for you, Jack.
You had a very aggressive argument that half the calls were in half the day, but
Yeah, well, we need
I guess
Dougie.
we've gotten past that.
We need Dougie to interpret
Yeah.
that for you.
Seems to be 65% of calls in a third of the day, doesn't it?
Something's been
You have a
tweaked.
great memory, Jack.
He refined his data.
All right. Well, thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Cole.
Thank you very much.
We've been,
Very colorful. I'm impressed that you got Marion up on the board and everything.
hello, Mr. McGee. Thank you for coming in. Sorry for gabbing away while you're sitting there.
Oh, hey, nice to see you.
Come on down. Nothing left. You might have to sell some of your
Yeah, I was
stuff,
gonna say,
actually.
rent some to the fire department. Do you have turnout gear?
No, Cole actually is going to put a plow in front of the ladder truck.
Two cul-de-sacs.
Bob, I just got to say that's an impressive looking outfit you got going there.
See, Bob,
Did you see the Grammys?
What are you, Jeff Punk? Or
wrong
are you,
with this?
okay, which guy are you? I don't want.
This is my Scottish tot, so you can
Yep.
do. You
Hey,
can get
Bob.
away with anything.
Bob, I hate to tell you, but I didn't even notice the tie.
sure, it's like camouflage.
Really?
We work off each other. Right now, I'm
Straight
destroyed.
man? He's a straight
Don't
man
feel
from-
bad. This is the dress he's been for our board in 9 years. So.
I am not a slave to fashion.
Just Bob, and whenever he does it, just do one of these to him.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you got?
Well, I'm hoping that you have in front of you a copy of what I got.
Well, that big, I didn't print it. 'cause
I don't
it
have a
was-
pass out.
We have the Capitol.
I have the Capitol. That's the only thing we have, Bob.
We had it in our packet, so Jack had sent it, or Marion had sent it to us.
I printed the
I
packet.
gave you an electronic copy.
Yeah,
If
I didn't print it.
You want me to
I-
go? I can go make hard copies.
Well, I printed it, and I didn't get a copy of that.
No, that was the packet. There was something different.
There was there was an Excel spreadsheet with
Yeah, Jack sent us two cell spreadsheets, one for fire, one for DPW.
Yeah.
But that was hard to print, Jack, because it didn't lay out right in landscape or something. I just couldn't, sorry, Bob, I didn't
We
print it
can
all.
walk through it. The Capitol, you can
Yeah, it's,
just turn it over. It's something, if you had time, you wanted to just take a peek at it.
3.9 million.
Do you have a hard copy with you, Bob? We'll just go.
It's half.
We'll just go run it.
I do. Actually, Jack, I put some writing on that, but that's the,
So it wasn't in the same one as the packet, Marion?
no, definitely not Jim. It came from Jack directly, like just Jack, two Excel spreadsheets.
He's got a copy of it.
You know, you remember you got that? I don't have my, but it came in as, yeah, two Excel. I think under budgets. Day, helped him in the day. Remember, it was not. When were we supposed to have a meeting? That was last week, right? So it would have been right.
Fire and
before-
DPW.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Give him the date so we can find it easier on his thing. What date was that coming?
December 21st, Jim.
Is it on the Norfolk webpage?
Marion, would you have it there?
I don't,
That could go up on that?
no.
You know?
Send it to you.
Did you find it?
I have, I just
What,
gotta
what,
dig it
which
out.
one is it?
What's it?
Uh,
Don't you hate when you reply, it just adds all this to them now?
Yeah,
I don't
okay,
like
so
it
it's
all.
7 days ago, so the 21st.
Oh, the fire and DPW budgets?
Yep, fire and DPW.
You know what I mean, like when you reply, it just adds them all, you know, I don't like that anymore, that's New Outlook, right? Because it used to be a separate one. I have a hard time, I'm not sure who you're replying to all. Just, I couldn't print it, it doesn't fit on a piece of paper. You know?
I gotta say, the irony of us canceling our meeting last week because of snow, and we're gonna hear the DPW budget, is just overwhelming.
I didn't, it wasn't so nice.
Just
They were
wanna
busy
know-
though, so we're not gonna drag them in when they're saving the street, right,
Yeah,
fixing the streets?
I could have stopped then.
Yeah.
I just want to know what happened to people living in New England. I mean, that you know,
Oh,
there
it's
was a,
appalling,
there was a
isn't it?
time when 6 inches of snow was just a dusting.
We live in New England, for God's
What
sakes.
happened?
I hear you, you're right. And everybody's got, well, there's a lot of four-wheel drives and SUVs with the,
Of course, that doesn't guarantee they drive.
and it could be 70 degrees and we don't have a big audience, so.
So overall, for the DPW, you are looking for a slight increase of around 108,000, 3%? Is that, am I looking at that number?
Yeah, I don't have my summary sheet, but it is.
Okay.
That's, it's about the right figure. That includes, you know, just to kick it off, if you want, I can, for those listening, thank you, Jack,
And watching.
watching.
Thank you, sir.
DPW is
So much.
Thank you, sir.
pretty much made up of 8 divisions, that being administration, highway, grounds, cemetery, vehicle maintenance, solid waste, and water distribution and water treatment, water being an enterprise account. Then we have 5 fixed expenses, and that's snow and ice, landfill, right-of-way lighting, fuel, and officer of veteran graves. Combined all, the total budget we're asking for is $108,259. $108,259
Additional.
additionally.
Yep,
Right,
3%.
equaling 3%.
Most of it's salary driven. There are a couple of outlier pieces. It looks like you're doing a little bit of moving around. Do you want to talk about that?
There is. Actually, I don't want to disguise anything, and I want to make sure that before we go in front of while I go in front of the advisory board, they understand fully that at this town meeting, this fall town meeting that we had some monies transferred late into our budget, which really disguises this budget. It's different than the one that was approved in July, and that was...
Yeah, one of the things that we've done in the past and we should do this time is we can show the prior year annual town meeting budget, we'll show the adjusted budget,
Right.
and then we'll show the proposed budget.
You're going to have to do that for the schools as well.
Yeah, we'll show it for everybody, yeah.
So when you see that increase, it's a even larger increase when you consider what we originally approved last year. So what happened basically is, to go back to the town meeting in November, we had a plan to shuffle things around, and it required moving money from expenses into salaries, because in short, in grounds, what we did was we had a
Because he's paid out of other
we had a
departments as well.
contract for lawn care, which is roughly equivalent to, at the time, 3 years ago, when we wrote the contract and specifications for it, equivalent to the cost of one salary. So we lost some personnel, a person in grounds. We bid grounds lawn care, and it came out to within a couple $1,000s of that salary, so it was kind of like a wash. This year, what we want to do is, that contract was up, so what we did was we took the contract money and expenses, we asked it to be transferred up into salaries, and figured what it would cost 3 years later, for now that we've had the experience, to what it would actually cost to take care of our properties, lawn care, as we call it. But we do have an addition of a new school. We have 115 is all, complete. We maintain that. We have an investment into a new Gumps farm. And there's a handful of other things that we did. So we asked to increase the salaries and grounds. And out of all our divisions, that's probably the largest increase that we've asked for.
Must be talking about the community gardens at Rockwood Road, I think.
Open space.
So if you want to, what I can do is, unless you have any questions with that, that's, really the difference with, why we transferred money in the November town meeting.
No, I just wanted people to
Thanks.
be aware that there's going to be a bit of an outlier in that situation. Mr. Beck, Mr. Bugby.
Bugby, that's fine.
No.
So, I assume Bob and Jack, so, which I'm happy, so you have no, other than, either contractor or salary expense, no expenses go up, I mean, there's no cost, there's the cost of living, but, so the cost, for irrigation definitely is, you appropriate 800, you only think it's gonna be 800, I mean, is that? so
Well,
good?
there's,
I'm happy, like I said, nothing's going, right, nothing changed,
Well, there is-
postage, I mean, doesn't it go from 44 cents to 46, maybe, I don't understand that, small stuff, but how they can't go up a little bit, not that I'm asking you to ask for more money, but.
right, what I'll do is and I won't take a long time with this, I'll highlight, the big jumps, and there's some
No, you don't have to go through- like,
decreases as well.
I'm just, like I said, communications, it's not gonna go up, I mean, your communications, like, AT&T's always raised my phone rate, I don't know what those are, but postage, bids, and ads, postage is going up, if the postal service has its way, it's gonna go up,
He knows it's going to be 2,811. It's absolutely a no.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I mean, okay, yeah, I don't know how you move,
But you're looking at the DPW administration, just one.
Right.
You was
right.
Right.
Because that was first page, but, I mean, I'm on page already, like, the municipal shade, again, all these little, they're little expenses, they're not changing though, which, again, is great, don't get me wrong. Don't take that as
Oh, not at all.
I want you to go and increase them, but same,
I just want to know what page you're on so I can give you.
Like, gotcha. I mean, just anything's, Bob, like, they all just stay flat, that's great, right? I just
When they're
didn't,
right across, right. So you want the DPW administration, the next one would be highway, and if you want, I
no, I
can.
don't want to, no, because,
Well, actually, let's go through the.
It just won't take long at all.
okay, which
So
page?
DPW admin, that's the first of the.
Right. And
after the
admin,
cover
I won't
page.
even, we don't even need to really discuss salaries. I think I covered a little bit of that with the transfers, but, the contractual increases are what they are.
$15,000, is that just the DPW building?
Are you looking at DPW
heat.
administration?
Yeah, I'm looking at DPW administration.
Where?
Halfway down, fuel and utilities, electric, 8,700.
Well, that increased by 2,000.
Yeah, because of that new heated space.
Right, we have we have some cost increase for fuel, oil, that went up a little bit. I don't know the factor that we put on, there may be a 2% increase or something like that. We call around, we find out what oil is, we trend it, we find out what we pay, how it goes up, and we put a cost calculation in. But we did build an office upstairs,
Yeah.
and that little bit of office, as we look at our expenses last year, can only be the reason why it went up beyond the cost of fuel.
How are you heating the upstairs?
It's baseboard. It's all fueled by oil,
Yep.
forced hot water baseboard.
Can we get an N-Star CNI audit on this? I mean, that's $22,000 a year in energy is a lot. So I'm not saying you do anything wrong. I'm saying
Yeah.
for free, the CNI guys will come in, take a look at your
Yeah.
building and see, come up with maybe, there are things you can do on the cheap that will save you money. So just,
I even had it done at my house. I know exactly what you're talking about. Not come through.
I suspect the garage that is heated is probably a big,
yeah, the interesting thing with the garage is there are, I think it's infrared, there's a different way of heating, and I forgot exactly what it
There's
is.
reflective heating, there's.
Yeah,
we-
but it would be a huge capital cost for you, and if
Yeah.
we're gonna not
Yeah.
have that
we
garage.
talked
forever.
about those for the theoretical public safety building. It was-
Yeah. And the clothing allowance has changed. Is that a contractual issue?
It is. You can see the math on the right. I don't, I think you got what I have here. So you got 13 employees, and we had a bargaining increase.
So that's in there, that's cooked. We
Yep.
made that negotiation.
We did.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but I think a big part of that is we really wanted to, we had some concerns, I guess, and we wanted to make sure the guys were all wearing the proper footwear. So that's a big part of that cost.
Because if they get hurt, we're in trouble, right, because it's replacing, yeah, it's in our best
What
interest.
kind of, you hold off and you hold off, but there's no more important people in our workforce than our labor, than the people themselves. But this is something that we're behind the times. When you look at what all the other towns are doing, and they've been putting up money for like boot allowance, making sure that guys have steel toes and safety equipment and stuff like that. So it's caught up to us, and that's what it is right now. So
Interesting debate sometime if you wanted about the guys that want the steel toes and the guys that don't want the steel toes. Some of the guys don't like the steel toes.
I mean, I'm sure they don't like them, but then we have
Pretty
the
interesting
liability, we have the other side.
As a what?
But it,
On the other side of
well,
liability.
steel toes, it's kind of like, it comes down to, I think, steel toes are good, because a lot of things fall on your feet, the steel toe is going to protect your toes. And the guy's argument may be that, if something crushes my toes, I can't get them out because of the steel toe, and, do you know what I mean?
stuck
Because the
in.
metal will crush your toe,
Yeah,
and then
it's crimp
how do
it
you
in.
pull your
Yeah,
feet?
yeah,
You're stuck with
That's
it.
a lot of,
That's a lot of weight hitting your
lot of
foot.
weight to-
But
That
then
is-
there it is.
That's,
If something large enough is going to crush that, your toe's gone anyway.
You're in
so-
deep trouble anyway.
yeah, it's at least, that would be, at that day is the least of your ways, but they just use that argument, right? You're just not gonna have the toes.
the steel at least,
Yeah.
pressure off your blood vessels. So you won't
Yeah, maybe it won't bleed.
Yep.
Maybe.
Okay, so
Apparently, they're very cold.
So just a quick glimpse at the
Skates have steel toes.
DPW, and you hit on them already. The heat went up 2,000 and
And they're
the
not cold.
clothing allowance. Other than that, total expenses, add them up, and the total expenses $6,100. Again, we'll go right past salaries because
yep,
so.
they are what they are.
Next one up is highway, and if you look at the total expenses there, it goes up $2,000, and
Now, crack repair is down, but daily maintenance is up, drainage, so is there a new philosophy or something?
well, again, I'm a guy that likes budgets. I like to break down line items and stuff like that because it tells me, because all I got to do is look at some historic spending. It's a tool for me, for everybody. So if you look at crack repair, when you have no money, crack repair is the type of thing that's going to keep a road together, but it's not the proper way to do it.
Yeah.
And so as you notice in the last couple of years, we've been paving. We've been doing the right things to the streets, and crack repair is an expensive Band-Aid, real expensive. It's like $4,000 a day to have a bunch of guys come in and put that stuff down, and all I do is get calls of annoyance, because it tracks into the house and it gets on your tires and stuff, and then if you put too much crack seal down on the street, you can't pave over it because it bubbles up the asphalt. So then we end up grinding it out of there and so forth. But it has its purpose, and we need to hold some money on it for the streets that have been paved maybe 1 or 2, 3 years. And because, we don't
But
want
the
to.
older ones, you put a Band-Aid
Yeah.
on a completely rusted out.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
So we
shift
shifted
that
a little bit of
to
money.
daily maintenance?
Yeah, daily maintenance, that could easily be 130,000
Yeah. Now, is that labor or is that materials? Daily?
materials.
That's materials.
We don't,
Labor is
if,
our
it could
guys.
be. I could have somebody come in and, a subcontractor or a local guy come in, and so it would pay his
His labor, but it's
his
really
equipment
still-
rental,
so-
stuff like that.
Where is potholes in this?
Daily maintenance.
Okay.
So now you can see why I said we could have 130, 140, or $1 million in it, because 30 doesn't even cover like one street worth of pothole. Oh, it sure does, but.
Well, daily maintenance, subtract out Chapter 90 or any articles for projects, that's
Still,
all you have
right,
for
that's what I
an
mean,
entire
yeah.
town. It's not much.
Oh.
But, and I didn't come here to complain about it. That's what it
It
is.
was what it is, right?
Goated into that. All right, moving on, Shade Tree?
Next one, grounds, municipal and shade tree. We already talked about why salaries went up there. We transferred monies from expenses one more time up into salaries. There is an increase here, but if you look at the total expenses are down $12,850. You would think that one would balance the other, but it doesn't. That expenses that we took, which was really equivalent to a person's salary, we brought back up, but we had to add to it again, add more money to it again, because current costs is far greater than $38,000. So, really, that's grounds.
Okay.
Next one, cemeteries. No increase, other than salaries went up a little bit. There isn't really much to talk about in salaries, but what we're
Except for
seeing.
overtime, why do you think that's gonna spike? You
Because
look
we're
at the
having
tax rate tables,
sad-
Bob, is there something I should know that certain people are gonna have more, you know what I mean? How do you know that? I know I'm
Yeah.
just picking on it because you didn't change anything, but
You're
that way.
anticipating
We're
a
good.
run?
Yeah. I'm
No,
looking unhealthy.
Saturday burials,
Oh, okay.
quicken. That's really what it is. There's
Yeah.
a lot of activity on Saturdays. Funeral parlors come to us, and we respond to them, and there's been a lot of burials and cremations and ceremonies on Saturdays. So we come in, a couple of guys, 4 hours in the morning, it's usually what it takes, and so forth.
And we don't get paid, we don't charge that back to
Yeah, no,
the,
we charge a
No, we have
differential.
a revenue.
You have a fee.
revolving.
We charge them, but that money goes into a revenue account that
Right.
that
Perpetual
they
carry.
can't access.
I get to know, okay, just I was hoping, yeah.
Pretty interesting little division.
Do other communities do revolvers on their cemeteries?
You could, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my
Probably
head.
not big enough to
Yeah.
warrant that.
My interest in revolvers
Yes.
dissipates as
Wane.
I get older, yeah.
Okay.
Vehicle maintenance?
Vehicle maintenance.
If you look at you go right down to the total expenses, there's an increase we're asking for of $8,600. This is kind of like the division that I'm pleased to see it's only 86 that we're asking for because it's usually more money. But if you go down and you highlight where what we're looking for is, well, actually, if you look at major maintenance, we don't have any on the radar, so it's $6,500 to the minus there.
Playing with fire.
But we've asked for a little bit more money in building maintenance, simply because there's, it's just shy of a capital request, but we have little things all around the building that we'd like to change out, like the rugs all need to be changed out for a tile floor or another type of application. I want to do a little plumbing upstairs in our engineering office. At some point, we hope to have a bathroom up there and just a kitchenette. But the plumbing's got to get done first, and that could be a capital project. Actually, if you look at our capital, I did put something in there for that, but probably not going to happen, so I threw something in the budget so we could continue to move forward just a little bit.
Where's police vehicle maintenance?
Fire department.
He still pays for that out of his budget, right?
Right.
The
He
fire
does.
doesn't.
Yeah.
We still do work with it, with their cars come in and so forth,
Yeah.
but when we buy parts or something like that, Chuck pays it.
17 grand a year in parts for the fire department. Is that why we had to give them the road safety class? They crash into stuff.
It's not the road, it's the garage safety that we need to worry about.
That's a driving course.
All right, so just $8,000 there.
Yeah.
Great.
There's a couple of other small things,
Bob, did we,
laptop.
I forget, because one of the things that we approved at the capital meeting, and we ended up losing the money when the prison mitigation went away, I thought was the new lifts. Did we end up getting
Yeah, they came back on.
they came
Oh,
back on?
wait a minute. Yeah, they did.
We did. We got a
We haven't
lift,
bought them yet,
and,
though, have we?
It came to me as a surprise.
I remember, yeah, you and I had a discussion at one point, and so you've got the money, but we haven't bought them yet, I think, right?
Right. It's in the account, so we can buy them now. But it was kind of like a 2012 request, I think. Maybe it was 13, but I thought it was 12. We didn't know the money to be appropriated in 13, and then
It hasn't bought it, so that tells you.
Just showed up a couple months ago.
Well, I think because we needed to reapprove it this past fall, so it's not that old.
Really
Could've been.
grumpy in your old
I
age.
guess rubber off, I
But,
gotta.
yeah, I know they needed, I know Paul needed the
Yeah.
new lifts, and you didn't have it on your list, so wanted to make sure we had the money.
Okay. What's next for you? I messed up the order on my page.
that's all right.
Solid waste.
That was vehicle maintenance. Next one up, solid waste.
Okay. Solid waste.
Total expense increase of $2,100. There's a switching of accounts, so we took 4,000, we dropped one for 4,000, increased recycling cost vendor to 4,000 to reflect what we would actually pay that line out of these expenses. So it's a wash, it's no more than that.
When's the last time we bid our disposal?
You or me?
I think it's up in 2017,
Oh,
like a 15-year contract, and then it was. Now the 15 years is up.
okay.
Is that typical that long, or is that what they, things do, yeah? Not even 5 and 10?
What do you know about it, Rob? Did the other
Do I know
towns,
about
they're,
it?
No, I don't.
I just had an interesting talk with Covanta this weekend.
Covanta?
Yeah, CMAS.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah.
They, and I was talking about our recycling issue, about having to haul away our recycling to Air or whatever it is.
Yeah, Amherst.
Amherst.
Is it? I think it is, yeah.
And
Well, there's a couple of different places, but.
yeah, they were talking about their ability to even do pickups, change around, that kind of stuff. But anyway, but we're,
But we're always studying the markets for that.
yeah,
We have the conversations just all the time.
yeah.
About removal fee?
just
But
who's.
you have a contract anyway.
You know,
so
there's a
really what are you
question
gonna
of
do?
loyalty, then there's a question if one guy's just a little bit less than the other guy, you don't want to
Right.
drop him for 14 years
Yeah,
of
yeah.
loyalty because he's there when, in the bad times, and this guy just springs up. So it's always measured out, and,
They're a
I think we
they're
do
a
it.
big operation, Covanta. They're not a fly-by-night.
Did they change their name? I always knew it as CMAS.
I don't know. That might be. They might have bought them. They might have bought
Mm-hmm.
CMAS, and they're not a town Anyway, so we are going to do a full. You're going to do a full bid though on a new contract.
Yeah, in another, 3 years.
That's the fee you're talking about, Rob, the 86 or the 82?
Yeah, that's 82,000.
That's the
well plus
time-
the recycling. So
Bob-
that's the $100,000 question.
Do you have an analysis over the difference the compactors have made?
I wasn't prepared to give that. All I can tell you was the news is good. When we first asked for that, we kind of told you and try to drive it as much as, we need 3 years of statistics.
I mean, clearly you could even see the difference. I mean, it's substantial. I'm just curious if you had a chance to really get a feel for the
Trucks
trending.
resting, but
You
we're
got it.
going to market with more. It's just everything that we talked about, the math is
So far, so good.
real
Good.
good, yeah. Finding what time to develop the material side of our recycling, the organics and the structural
Mm-hmm.
fills and the looms and stuff like that, because the guy simply isn't burning gas going up the Mass Pike.
Right.
It's all, good stuff.
Yeah.
It would be good, like, I know the advisory board probably asked the same question, if we could just at least talk about the number of,
I can have
You're asking
something,
for
the
more
reduced
gas.
number of trips.
yeah.
You are asking for more vehicle fuel this year, so just be ready for that to come up. You're asking for 1,500 more in solid waste.
Spin that as just the cost going from 352.
Well, part of that, I would
It is
imagine.
what it is.
Well, but I would imagine part of that is the fact that you're now in the service business more than you have been in the past, too. I mean, you're selling loom
Yeah.
and you're doing things of that nature, and there are deliveries to that. Now, there's revenue, but the revenue doesn't come direct, so you have added expenses as a result of that. So I suspect some of that's there.
And just making a note to make sure that I have that information for the advisory board. That 1,400 just could be a reflection of
Price
fuel increase.
It's about 8%, though. That's
Yeah, that's a little, I mean,
How many trips did you make last year in delivering loom, Bob,
just
roughly?
over 2.5. 'cause inflation.
Loom or whatever, to homeowners, how many? I mean, you made 2 to
100.
me. I bought 2 truckloads of stuff,
I'd say, 2 to 300
2 to 300,
trips,
Yeah.
small loads or,
8 miles a
Jeez.
gallon
Yeah,
on one of
yeah.
those trucks on a good day?
downhill with the clutch in.
you mean, how much fuel
I
do we
mean-
burn in a truck, a gallon?
Yeah.
He's just trying to help you,
I'm just saying that if you made 2 to 300 trips,
That's something you didn't anticipate.
that historically in the past, you haven't had that volume of trips because you're just new in the market to a certain
Exactly.
degree.
So that the curve
And,
explained it.
every time you
That may
drive,
be in the high side. You know what, I'm just shooting too much from the hip. We were going out every day.
Say it-
3 times a day and stuff like that in the summer, and then we don't go out at all.
so if you went
revise
out
it over
100
Christmas.
times.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
I'm just saying, I'm not trying to help you or defend it, but I think it's a logical answer. If you went out 100 times and you're getting, I don't know what one of those truck gets, but it can't be more than 5-6 miles per gallon when it's loaded.
Right. Exactly.
So, right there is a
500-600 bucks a
significant
minute.
difference.
50 cents a trip.
And we've gotten the revenue, which is far in excess of the cost, but you're absorbing the cost and not getting the revenue, so.
Right. We're spending a lot more time in the yard processing materials.
Yeah, which is
I gotta
good.
believe that that's probably more than than what you're talking about.
Oh, and the equipment to process it? Yeah?
Maybe a good combination of both.
Yeah.
But that machine is going all the time. We're using the screener, these are diesel operating pieces of equipment.
Yep.
We're shaking out loom and, separating stone over here and.
See, my point is, I'm surprised it's that low. See, I guess I'm on the other end of the scale. I would have thought your increase for fuel would have been higher.
Because you created a new business.
Because you're
Your fleet
you're
of trucks
doing
going
so
out,
much
right, right,
more, and the revenues exceed the costs. So, I mean, in terms of the overall picture, the town's benefiting, but in terms of your costs, you're absorbing more costs.
Whether you got 200 4-mile trips versus those trips to Amherst or Air or wherever,
Right.
which is like 50 miles at a time or 60 or 70.
Right.
So, but just it'd be interesting to get the stats. I'm sure someone on the advisory board will want to dig into that.
And maybe I should have just brought a revenue sheet with you, because if I did have right now a budget, you'd see that the revenues are up more than they ever have
Oh, I'm
since
sure.
the inception of solid waste. I mean, it's really noticeable, and.
So, are we covering the expense of the transfer station? Of the solid waste division? Yeah.
At this time. So if you were to say, could we go total enterprise right now, I'd really have to shake out the numbers, but,
Close, so it's getting closer.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not ready for that, but I'm excited about that. That's great.
Good stuff,
Any other
good things
questions on
going on in
solid
solid waste.
All right, what do you got next?
Now we have our water,
Uh,
and water is, like I mentioned before, is broken up into two subdivisions, treatment and distribution. And if you go, just jump to the salaries and expenses, but the total expenses are increasing 14,900, or we're asking for it. Something I want to mention at the end of this presentation that,
Where's the?
to say that I said it.
I'm seeing 18.
Third page in water, there's 3 pages
Oh,
of the
total,
water.
oh,
budget.
okay, 14,902, very total, okay, yeah.
But just to round up why the numbers are the way they are, we're asking for an increase of 12,000 roughly in distribution. It's simply because we're managing our own distribution system more than we have before when we relied on contractors. Right down to painting hydrants. I mean, we're doing so much more. These guys are out there switching out valves and gates and water main pots and all sorts of stuff. So we're asking for more money there. We're asking for,
Because in the past, that was done by our contract service, that was done by someone
well,
doing it for you?
it's more that in water, yeah, it's kind of like a combination of things. In water, 3 years ago, we had one foreman in water and a director. And we were totally reliant on 2 consultants.
Right.
One with an expertise in treatment, one with an
in
expertise in
distribution,
distribution,
right?
in theory.
Theory.
They actually both cross over one another. Now what we do is, we have a water superintendent, and we funded the water superintendent, just going back, we funded water superintendent with some daily ops money. I'm sorry, it was for flushing, because with the superintendent, we went out, we did our own flushing, where we budgeted $50,000 a year to have a consultant do it. We're doing it ourselves. In doing it, we're gaining knowledge of our own, where these hydrants are located, how it's getting done. We just manage it better, and, so,
So you've picked up, 85,000 more or less, in new salary in the past several years.
right.
We haven't dropped the contracts down that far yet, so we're still, that's not falling as fast
We
as.
have, it's been going down. It's been decreasing.
It's down another $7,000 this year, at least from what I can see.
Wish I do have a history of spending going back to 2007, and I could, if I were to reflect the budget, what was approved in, like, say, 2008 to where it is now, there's an increase, but not significant enough where you'd say it, not to fund 3 brand-new employees. Most of that funding was done out of expenses moving
Right.
upward.
Right.
What was the month, I'm looking at the contract services treatment, and was the monthly sampling being done under weekday coverage previously, or was that done someplace else, or why is that a new line item, I guess is?
I'm trying to figure out where that is. What page are you on, Jack?
Page 2 of the
On
3.
the second page, under contract service.
There's a couple of
treatment,
different sampling ones, that's why I
Monthly, it's
want
about 7 lines. 10
It's
lines.
the $6,760 number, up from 0, but I wonder if that was, you with me? I'm wondering if that,
I'm sorry, I asked this question the other day to Phil and to Whitewater. We wanted to put money into the monthly sampling, and I just can't remember why. It was a Whitewater recommendation, as I wrote down there.
I just wonder if they were doing it as part of the weekday coverage before,
You know what it is? I'll tell you exactly what it is. Forgive me for not knowing it, like, right off the top. Last year, we did it ourselves. So we didn't ask for funding. But if you go back to 13, 12, 11, and you keep going, monthly sampling was always funded in there. Last year, we wanted to do it on our own because we have the expertise in-house. But it's not worth it. It's worth it's, if you, sampling is just taking water, and if you put your finger on the inside of the lab
Oh, mess up the
tube,
test
or
result,
you
right?
mess up the, it's just really not worth it. Let the experts do it, they have their own containment, they have their own little truck that goes off to the sampling and stuff. So,
Okay.
it's not worth the headache for us to do it. It's, let the doctors do what the doctors do, and
Yeah, and that makes sense.
And that's
I mean,
it.
And I know
That was always funded years earlier.
it creates a huge kind of political nightmare for us, but that also, I'm sure, costs us money to recover from
Yeah.
when we do have a false negative, false positive.
Listen, just going back to, I don't want to miss the big numbers for you, but going back to the first page, you'll see that there's a $16,000, 16.6 increase in meter replacement. That is in part by, there's expansion. Every time we have a new subdivision, we've got to buy a new meter. We don't have them sitting on the shelves. So we have new subdivisions, we need new meters. We got 48 houses coming up, Fox Run. We're
Now,
gonna
is
need
that
'em.
offset by the revenue side, though? And so again, these are like Bob absorbed.
All right.
So it's not as,
So if I had a revenue sheet right here, you'd say every time,
so-
you wish that was 60,000 and not 16, because it's gonna bring back 200. Because
Right.
If you wanna think that way.
Well,
But the other thing too is, you don't wanna think that way. I mean, it's not,
buying water off of Rentham.
I didn't get there yet.
I know.
But the other thing is in that 16,000 is that, when we had some years, a few years back, that we had a large percentage of lost water, unaccounted for water, it was a consent from the DEP, one that we imposed on ourselves to replace 20% of meters over a 10-year period. I mean, 100% of meters over a 10-year period, and if you do it over 5 years, it's 20%, whatever. But the good news is that we've recovered so much of our water consistently now that every time we go out and do a leak detection, he's finding less and less. We're putting this guy out of business. It's really good. And as a result, I think what we're going to do is we're going to take the master plan, or the Water Management Act that imposes this replacement of meters, because I asked the question, what's that got to do with lost water? I mean, we bought meters 8 years ago. So why replacing meters? They thought that maybe the faulty meters or something like that, but it wasn't the case. We recovered them through labor and leaks. And we're down to, I think the last reading we got was about 8%,
Hey, all right.
which is surveyed the United States, and that's unbelievable.
From 40, right? Or
From
was it
50
higher?
plus
It's higher, it was
percent.
over 50.
53, I think.
We
was
were
over
feeding
50.
water to two Norfolks
Yeah.
at
Well,
one
that's
point.
excellent.
So that's good news.
So tell
So
me why we're buying water from Rentham.
I'm gonna,
Not there yet.
but I'm still on the first page, right? No, second page up.
Yeah, let's go, second page.
we're trying to get you there.
Just before we do that, you'll see a $4,000 increase. We're asking for SCADA service and maintenance. SCADA's a system that allows us to read our tanks, levels, and manage them from our home computers. So we have people at home that, with a computer next to their bed that might just beep if the tanks dropped 8 feet real quick. So we also have, Fox Run has the system's first new booster station, and that's monitored by SCADA. So that's what
well,
that
that's
is.
not up and running yet, right?
Very close to it.
Yeah, it's about, actually, it's done, isn't it? It's just a matter
It is.
of,
There's
wasn't
a-
it just it was N-Star, I think, was the only holdup to
be.
that.
Yeah, plus you need the homes
Yeah.
built.
But, well, there are
actually
homes
water.
built there.
There
now.
are, but
Yeah.
it's not built
Wasn't
out.
it,
But
wasn't the issue N-Star? They just didn't power it up?
I think so. And Star and a couple other little things. They've been working on it like every single, all the time. So
Oh, it's
that should be
tough to
online.
connect those
Done
lines.
to your satisfaction, Bob? Remember we had that debate
Yeah.
above ground, below ground. What was the end result? Is it done? Are you happy with the way they did it? Or?
Well, the argument was, should we get water from Rentham? Do we need that kind of fire support?
Right.
Oh,
if you had
Please don't,
pressure
please
and-
don't go through that again.
I didn't know if you're happy with the end.
Scott made me.
I just asked him if he was happy with the end result. Though, you like what it is? Is it good?
No, it's yeah.
I don't get a straight answer.
It's above ground, and it's good. It's better for our maintenance.
It's what
what-
we want. It's
what I mean.
it's
That's all I was
state of the art,
asking.
and why should we, put
Settle
our
for
own
less.
money up
No, I agree.
to get nothing but, what is good and manageable, and it's, it's going to perpetuate. So spend the money now to get the right equipment. The $10,000 for Rentham is because we need that insurance. If we don't spend a dime of it, I don't know what the budget for that. If we don't spend a dime of it, that's fine. I don't want to take it out of unforeseen expenses or anything like that. I guess we could, but it's almost like the snow budget there, you know, we got to put something up, and
Why so much? Or is that because is that just a minimal failure, or is that anytime you have any failure at all?
we
It's gonna be
have-
a minimum 10,000.
it deserves its own meeting, but we have two wells sites, two
Right.
tanks. The two well sites are slowly declining. And at times, if you have one system where you have an outage, a pump go, and you just can't get any water from that well, we're depending on the other one. We don't want to depend on the other one,
It's gonna
because
make it
the other
worse,
one
right?
works
Yeah.
hard. It's
Right,
like
yeah,
a
yeah,
submarine.
double its work, yeah.
And sometimes it's better to just ask Rentham for water
Yeah.
and not tax that only one that's online. So you manage it.
Right, so
know,
you just build, okay, so you don't know, could be zero, if nothing ever fails, which is not gonna happen, but
Right.
it'd be zero.
I would suggest that, you just sort of raised it, but I would suggest that we have a meeting in the not-too-distant future just on the water situation. I mean, I know there's been a lot of conversation, Rentham schools, all different kinds of ways that we could theoretically approach this, but it's not a simple answer and it's an expensive answer, but it's one that really, if you look at what's going on right now, we're inching our way towards an issue.
Yeah. And I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I don't want to leap towards that issue. So I think the sooner we have that conversation, the better.
How big is a Zone 1 exclusion? Do you know the radius?
What do you, I don't,
Like, you know, so you get your water source in the middle, and there's the Zone 1 and then Zone 2.
I thought it was 1,000 feet.
you talking 200 foot, are you talking radiuses around wells?
Yeah.
Talking about the zone that you have
Yeah.
to protect the well, the well, the
Wellhead protection
The well
zone.
zone.
I think it's 1,000 feet, or,
That's what I thought.
800,000 feet.
I thought my recollection was a 400-foot radius, so 800 feet.
I don't know what the 400 feet, you know, I should know, and I
Okay.
knew a month ago. I can't remember. There's zones for,
you
there's
gotta-
protection zones, and
You just thinking of potential locations, or?
Yeah. It might come up later tonight.
there is I know, just
If we move on, then, but,
because I don't want to blow you off on that thought, because it's really important to me, is that we have a meeting coming up with the Placido, and I thought that might be a good time
Well, that's one of the options.
to
yeah.
discuss, because we need to talk about water real soon,
Right.
because we invested in a report,
Right.
an assessment report,
Did
as
we
you know.
finalize the roundtable with him yet? Have we got a date?
Yeah, it's the
27th,
Thursday,
28th?
the 20.
27th?
I never saw anything that said
That's,
finalized, I just saw
that
everybody
was
weigh
for,
in.
that's
No, I
for
didn't send it
the
out. I
property
just
off
sent it to
Lawrence Street.
Rob
Right, but
yesterday.
that's part of the conversation.
Not necessarily.
But
Well,
could-
it is.
It could be.
It is, but the
Yeah.
assessment report, we want to address, which is very closely related, of course.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. It's got to get on the table soon, though.
So do you want to try and go through that at that big meeting?
So, Bob, why the Franklin increase? I mean, are they just gouging?
It's
It's like a
worth putting on
50%
the
increase for
table,
water.
sure.
I mean, it's not a big item, but it's $5,000.
Why wouldn't you put
I mean, I
that?
see your expenses don't
No,
seem
that's
to
fine.
increase that
Yeah,
much to
yeah.
Franklin for the Mill River area.
When they,
Bob would
when
like
their
to
rates
do it
go
with
up, we
planning
got to
board
pay
and
it.
others
Right, but that's
involved.
the rate went up that much.
Well, that's
to break-
from time to
You tell me the people
And
in
then
Franklin are screaming, that's a 50.
and then another house or two went on. So we flipped the bill for them, and then we get reimbursement from,
It just seems like a big rate increase, right? We don't pass that kind of big
yeah.
rate increase.
Well, it's a big rate increase, but it's
Depends
not a
on
lot
the
of money to start with.
Right, no,
You know, it's an $1,800 increase,
right.
because rates went up, and we
Right,
put
yeah.
another house, or maybe
Oh,
even
that's
two
a-
online.
Oh, okay. Might want to put that in explanation to those guys, because it's not just, it's really not the rate, increase, it's the fact that you had two more houses at, say, $1,000, whatever it costs per house, you
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? 'Cause
So what do you pay? For one house, for instance, what's it cost us? We're average homeowners, $500 a year for water, what is it?
I don't,
Yeah.
I get it, I have a well.
I'm on
so-
well.
I'm on well.
Huh?
Mine's 1,000 a year, but I'm also paying,
Is it two bills at 500? No.
yeah, but I'm paying off.
I go
a,
like that, you know,
A water.
Give it to the wife.
Hookup. So it's about 500 a year.
Yep. So it's easy to go up $1,800 when you get a rate increase and two houses online, so
Yeah.
that's what that is.
Well, it's not up 18, it's up 5,200, right? It's almost double, that's what I'm saying. So you have two houses, that's 500 houses.
oh, yeah, the
1,000,
Franklin,
so
the
what
Mill
is-
River,
I mean, not saying, I'm not, again, your expenses, you hold the line with everything, it's not out of control, Franklin, it just seems like a lot.
What's your problem? No.
They can pass that kind of rate increase on to their poor water users? You know, that's huge, right?
Yeah, that's their
Not
rate
as well
increase.
run as we are.
Okay. I think they would hang, you know, if we had a
Check.
public hearing for
Very
that,
well
right? You
run
think we
community.
could get that kind of rate
Well,
increase?
Franklin's been draining our ponds, so that's the only reason. So
It's our water, they're selling it back to us.
Anyway, go ahead.
Oh.
Sorry.
All right, so what else you got?
It's all bad. Snow and ice?
Moving right along.
$25,000. Love it.
Yep. With the,
Board of
with,
Selectmen proposal.
so next year we'll look
saw
at,
that.
Board of Select.
I saw that.
Sorry, what was that?
so it increased 25 last year, it increased 25 next year, and this year, and next year we'll talk about it again.
So how much an inch?
5,000.
5,000. Not bad.
See, I don't forget everything. That's 4,000 something if you divide it all up every year, and you get a consistent $4,000 or $5,000 an
No, we
inch.
don't pay by the inch, though.
No.
Okay. The community I work for. No, I'm serious. The community I work for pays
By the inch?
That's the contract.
What happens if they measure in
Why, it's
different
all
parts of the
private
town?
contractors, you mean?
It's mostly private contract, and it's like $42,000 an inch. But it's a
Can I just ask a question,
It's a
just
bigger
out of
town.
curiosity? I mean, it is a bigger town, and you can
300
have,
road miles versus.
No, but
you-
Jim's got a good point.
but you can have a different snowfall in different parts of the town.
So where do they measure, Jim? Say,
So
what's
does
I don't
somebody
know,
run
some-
out there with a
unless there's
yardstick
something
and figure
in the
this all out, or?
I hope the smallest part, Jim. That's what director sustainability. He has a rule. He goes, it's known until we get the least amount of snowfall, so that's what we
That's-
measure.
that's the rate.
And he hopes it's the light powdery stuff. So it's like, hey, it's just, I got it down.
Well, actually, you want the wet stuff, it sinks down.
6 down. You're right. Yeah. We'll pour it off. Good for Rob.
All right, what else you got? Any comments on snow and ice? Anyone want to open this can of worms?
I have one comment from the town accountant, and sorry, Bob, was catching you off guard, but one of the things that Julie, in a perfect world, would love to see is to take, we do a lot of maintenance on the plows and the equipment and all that. The trucks and the plows and the
Yep.
sand, the backs of the trucks where the sand is. Sorry, I'm
You're having a hard time with this one, aren't you?
having a hard
Yeah,
time.
so you're using the technical terms on us now.
Big green things that run around.
Sandy
got
thing. It's the sand.
In a perfect world, she'd like to take, and so that's money that we spend in September and October and probably November prepping for the winter. That gets charged to the snow and ice budget. In a perfect world, she'd love to take all of that out and move it into vehicle maintenance budget. We don't have to, but, then you.
How much is it?
$175,000.
The budget's half gone by Christmas.
I would,
Didn't snow.
I think that's a great idea. I would agree with her.
Actually, there's some lawful guidance on that. You're not supposed to. There's some procurement laws governing what you can spend and what you can't spend.
No, I think it's like
Dedicated
more
equipment,
maintenance, though.
service and maintenance and all those things. It's supposed to come out of an annual budget, not necessarily the snow and ice budget,
That's what I would think.
which is undetermined. We haven't set it up that way. And
That sounds to me like a very good change.
So we could look at that and just look at what the annual cost is, and
oh, yeah, we
so we're
can.
going to see we'd see an increase to the vehicle maintenance budget, and
But it's a trade.
maybe we want to do a decrease to the snow and ice, depending. And it'd be a trade. So we're not looking at saving money or spending.
Leave it even. You're moving 25,000 over
Yeah.
because it's the net results the same.
Yeah, but it's also, I think, from an accounting perspective, the right place to put it. Yeah, I would agree.
All right, we can look at that.
It kind of supports our capital requests when you actually see the equipment aging and falling apart because of snow plowing.
I am very concerned about our streetlights.
You went past landfill to where?
$6,000 in the.
I'm being facetious.
You own right-of-way lighting?
Yeah.
We don't own the streetlights?
Not much going on in landfill, so I'll flip that page then.
Yeah, landfill is the landfill.
Leachate's all under. We even had a leachate conversation a long time. That's
I don't know
all.
where
Tonight is not the
that must be the lunches.
No,
Tips.
it's for the guys who pour the booze.
Oh,
They have to
tipping
have the
fee.
tipping.
Tips. Hence, we had the rule.
All right, so
Okay.
where are we now?
Town vehicle?
Right-of-way lighting, and that kind of,
I
you
was
hit on
kidding.
what I said I would have liked to, I want to talk to you, make a mention of before we leave. That's one more budget after that. So right-of-way lighting, no increase.
I was kidding.
Well,
Are we still, I mean, I guess the good news is I don't drive through here at 3 o'clock in the morning very often. Are we still shutting half of them off at a certain point in time?
yes, all the time. It hasn't changed.
No, I mean, at a certain time,
10 o'clock
every
or
night, they
something,
go
right?
off, right?
All right,
Are they actually metered?
yes.
Or, okay, they're not on like the N-Star lighting tariff, because N-Star has a streetlight tariff where they assume, so one of the big problems with lighting in Massachusetts is if you're an N-Star, for instance, it's 7.2 hours a night at blank, and it doesn't matter if you turn the lights off or leave them on, because your individual lights aren't metered. So does N-Star know we're turning these off half the time?
No, they're not metered. They're through our N-Star billing.
Okay, so we should tell them.
they are metered.
Huh?
They are
Well,
metered.
they are metered because they have
we get
to
we
bill.
get a monthly bill.
But I
But
could,
that doesn't mean anything.
Are,
if
are they
it's-
reflecting the fact that they're off, which is your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because normally streetlights are not metered, so it really doesn't matter what your usage is because you're given a rate based on X number of hours, because we know in June you'll need them for 7 hours a night, and we know you'll need them for 12 hours in December.
So you're saying we're getting no benefit for really turning, if we're not
Yeah,
getting that
if-
credit?
We cut money out of the budget back, near the end of Butch's tenure, so
Yeah.
20 grand out of that.
so I think so, but I'll certainly double check.
So they do that, it seems nice. I mean, and sorry, they're their best interest not to meter, because then they can just get away with this, no matter what the town does.
And we don't own the streetlights. We don't own the Cobra heads, right?
We do own this.
we do it. We do own
the
it,
Cobra
right.
heads. Do you, so, how many are you replacing a year?
Here we go, don't answer that.
I could
said that-
find
I've
out,
said
but
that
if I was just to guess, I'd say about 10 to 15.
10 to 15. We have how many, would you say?
Sheesh,
Here we go.
30 plus, more?
You replace 10, 15, you replace them every 3 years, no, you have to.
All the way up the library, Main Street, all the way.
No, no,
up.
I'm talking about the
The big ones.
high-pressure sodium, HPS.
Oh.
Oh, they're the intersection lights.
I'm talking about the fancy lights.
I'm talking about
Sorry.
streetlights. I'm talking about streetlights.
Oh, you're talking about the fancy lights on
We've
You're talking
moved
about
on. I've
downtown.
moved on from-
Downtown.
I've
Yeah,
no,
that's
I've
why
moved on from downtown lights.
Okay.
To
to
my right
real
branches
streetlights.
Oh,
intersection.
around town.
Cobra head,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know the number.
Okay, 100, 200, in that kind of.
Not even.
Not even.
I'd say maybe 50.
But we own them? We don't,
No, they belong to N-Star.
Okay, they
I
do
called
belong
them
to N-Star.
and put together a work order for that.
okay, all right,
So we don't have any say.
all right. Cool.
Do we pay the electricity on those, do you
Yes.
know?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what you pay with this rate of, whatever.
Yeah, because that's with the subdivisions, the subdivisions, we charge them 30 years' worth of electricity as a surcharge when they put in a streetlight.
Now, is
30
there,
years?
I think it was 360 months, right? So that's 30 years.
so, is there any thought on
360
the
months.
subdivisions? If we,
Where do we come up with
if
that?
we have them put up lights requiring the LEDs?
Zoning
Well-
bylaws.
We're not putting lights in subdivisions unless,
I think it's general bylaws.
There's no overheads, no Cobras?
some of them are coming online, like I asked Jim the other day, there was,
The one down off of
Three.
Myrtle?
off of Myrtle.
Yeah.
And, we put them in, we're responsible for the maintenance of them and so forth. Everything's underground, and if you go through the new subdivisions right now, the houses do everything you need to do. There are a lot of country roads around here where we spot lights that we just talked about. They come off a telephone pole, the lights and stuff like that. But the new subdivisions are all, if we don't need street lighting, you don't need them because you have clear
Okay.
vision because the houses are lit up, and so why take on that extra overhead?
Okay, no.
If it was a safety issue, I wouldn't be saying that, but.
Okay. Onward.
Well, we got a couple of texts from people who said they can't see your tie.
Excuse me?
busting a
We
chop.
just passed a harassment policy. Unfortunately, it was just sexual harassment, but the
I'm not going to file a complaint.
sartorial
Do we have a,
harassment.
well, do we need
The thing is, I wasn't kidding. I didn't know you had a tie on.
We need a bullying policy, that's it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take this out of them, Bob. Guess whose street's not getting paved next year? Appalachia? All right, what do you got, Veterans Graves or?
Well, Town Field, Veterans Grave, I think we went by landfill,
We're good.
nothing going on there.
Nothing, yep.
Town vehicles, subtotal of increase of 2,000 for
Right,
fuel.
okay. Fuel tank, so,
Yeah, we have the two, I think the two 5,000-gallon tanks
yeah,
in our yard, and they're concrete, and they're behind a fence, and they need to be looked at. And they've reached an age that we need to have a guy walk around them, seal them, caulk them, keep that other shell. Yeah, concrete line, they're,
yeah, okay.
kind of like modern 20 years ago,
One diesel, one gas, or two gas, or,
gas and diesel.
and all of our town vehicles fuel up there, or,
Police, everybody, yeah.
okay. How often do you bid that out?
What, fuel?
Yeah.
We signed that one recently, right? Remember, didn't we just have that? Yeah, the
Annually by
surge or
surge,
something.
right? I think it doesn't surge?
No, surge thing or something like
We do it
surge.
through surge?
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't know if
Yeah.
you were talking about anything with the tank, but
yeah.
no. Yeah, so that's on, like
will.
chemicals, the treatment and all that goes through surge.
Veterans Graves has,
That's because it's an open position, right? Is that why?
no, the expenses is,
The officer position, though, is that not being used or filled? You're not proposing
that's
money
going
for
to someone else in the DPW, right?
Oh, okay, yep. Oh,
It's gonna go anywhere. We just take care of it and, you
Well,
know.
isn't this a state requirement?
And I thought that used to be Mr.,
Yeah.
the guy who was.
But it
school
doesn't
committee.
have to be a non-employee.
Okay.
Oh,
But we do have somebody that's interested in doing it, so if you want to have a veteran non-employee take this over, we can invite him in to.
So this is a stipend cost.
yep.
Yep.
Expenses up, any particular?
Well, they've been underfunded, really. That's the cost. Jack, I think you have some money somewhere for some of the things that you do.
Well, we've got money in the selectmen's budget for flags that
from
we sometimes, depending on how our flags are doing, sometimes we
Right.
donate a little bit over to the Tommies.
Because actually, one of these, I don't know if it's the memorials or is it the flags that you buy? Do you remember offhand?
Flags, right? Flags.
Right,
regular
because
flags.
that's the money that wouldn't seem like an increase if you didn't want to pay for it anymore, we would.
Yeah.
So it's a savings across the table kind of thing.
Okay.
That's a wrap.
Nice job.
Pretty good job. Did Chief Cole leave this? This is not yours, is it?
Huh.
So we call him.
He's probably listening.
I texted him.
Oh, he knows it's here?
What are you
Okay.
talking about?
Cole's radio.
Cole,
I texted
come
him.
in,
He didn't
come in.
respond, but
No. You can see he's on the job.
he's
Sorry,
probably
Cole.
watching.
Come get your radio.
Thank you very much, Bob. And I love what you guys are doing at the transfer station. I think that's great. And the roads are looking wonderful.
Plow-wise, compared to other towns, again, still the same thing. Even just driving over to KP between our town and some other unnamed towns, your roads are better. And you live out there, you know the roads.
Thanks.
No, again.
That's great. The capital, this year I entered in a couple of roads as a project.
A couple, I said contest. Contest.
We don't have the, the perpetuating road stabilization fund or the stabilization fund.
Right.
So I figured if we did this, and a lot of towns do this, propose,
An article.
capital can come in two forms, really, and it comes in the form of equipment, vehicles and equipment, and projects. Building and site. And I know in my experience is that some towns take like your main streets and they maintain them, requesting the money through articles. Save Chapter 90. What I'd like to do is, and that can be changed. That's just something that we threw together as quickly as we could, just to give you an idea of some of our more important needs. But if we were to take care of our main streets and some of the main street sidewalks, asking, through articles, then we could take our Chapter 90 money and we could go in and rebuild a neighborhood or two every single year, which they really don't get touched at all.
Right.
Then if it would actually support an argument to bring the stabilization fund back, because though they would feel the bang for their buck, because we're going to show up in their neighborhood sooner or later, because the neighborhoods are falling apart. And if we continue to just take the Chapter 90 money and throw it into Main Street and on Route 115 or, Seekonk Street, we'll never get into Lafayette Estates and Pheasant Hill, and those streets are falling apart. So it's just a thought. I don't know how you finance it, but I put it in there for consideration.
Yeah, I was going to look at those, and then look at our debt that's inside the cap, and see how those would fit into that as we expire some projects.
We talked a
Don't
lot about
forget
Lake
we
Street.
have that,
I put that in
public
there.
safety issue still looming over us.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lake Street.
It's not going away.
So 135 for the whole.
That's the goal.
That's what you estimated last time.
Well, it
Pretty
is,
close.
but to do it right, it would be much more money. I want to take on as much as that we can in-house. So right now, through Norfolk Engineering, we have line and grade. So we know where the center of the road is, and we know some rough elevations out there. I'd like to do is if we can get the money, is to go down as quickly as possible, pave a binder course down there on the existing road, whether it's left or right of the center line, and then over a period of time, go back and do some sideline work. But in the meantime, we have water quality improvements by the road being constructed. We have, we save on equipment, so we don't have potholes, so we have something to plow without going through the windshield. And then at that point, when you have the binder down and people can travel safely, we can go look at the side sloping and some of the trees that are going to eventually fall into the road, because Lake Street has a couple of, it's cut into a couple of banks where there's up and down cliffs held together
We
by
know
root
it well.
systems. But that's not something, you know, if we were to ask for all that money all at once, and, you know, there's some, probably, as more importantly, is there's some conservation issues there. There's wetland issues, and it's a pretty sensitive area. The pavement's only going to help that, but the construction of it requires hay baling. What are we going to do with the water, swaling it, and all that stuff, so.
You can try and go through conservation in the spring, the conservation
Yes.
committee?
You know, if I do it, it's kind of like, I get all that work done, then I got to do it. I don't have the money yet. We don't have the money yet. So I didn't ask you to give me the money through Chapter 90. I didn't request that. We don't know if you want to pay for it through an article. You know, it's kind of conversation for another time, but pretty soon we got to do something. We started this thing going, we brought people in.
We gotta finish
We
it.
need to do something.
I agree.
So that 2.4 and change million of this is water projects. The blues, the one in blues. Starting at new source development and construction down to utility dump with crane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
here.
Separated it out.
Yeah, right here, he's talking like
Oh,
that.
you got the, I wasn't
Color
looking
about
at
that? Yeah,
415.
If you look,
right, he's there,
if you look, I did add it up.
yeah. he did.
I shaded it very lightly.
Yep.
So that's what it is. That's a sum of above the total, above it.
Yeah, right, and then 1.5 is the other stuff,
You know,
the highway stuff.
feed you back a question. Is there a time that we are going to talk about capital? You probably just don't even want to hear this question, but
Yeah, you want to talk about it at our, probably not our next meeting, but the one right after that?
The 18th.
And then we'll go to,
School vacation week, does that affect anybody?
doesn't affect me,
Okay.
I don't think, I hope.
Why couldn't we do it at the next meeting?
Could.
Got a
It's coming up next week, right?
Is that
Coming back
rates?
to-
Got one department head to come.
We get the- Yeah, we
it's
get the,
okay.
we get
yeah,
the
when
rate
do we
hearing.
close rates? I think it needs to be,
More serious?
yeah.
I'd like to put together a presentation other than just this, you know,
Yeah.
and impact statements for these things, what's really important. And at some point, if there is money, whether it be free cash or something, you tell me, you know, how much money there is or something like that, then I can squeeze this down into what's real
Right.
more. Because I know this is, above and beyond this, we have a whole vehicle replacement list, you know.
Bob, now the looping will add a lot of users as well. The looping, you order system.
Water system looping.
The looping that you want to do. Not only will it improve the system, so you don't have all these dead ends that you've currently got, but
Yeah.
wouldn't it also bring on a lot of users?
Bring on a lot of users? I'm not so sure we want a lot of users anymore. We need to talk about that.
Yeah, given the
Well,
source
I know you've got,
problems.
I know that's a separate issue,
Right.
but in theory, the looping
Right.
gives
It-
greater
yeah.
access.
Because it'll, you know, if you
I
develop
mean,
the
you
land off of
you
that.
can't prevent it. I mean, if you're going to loop it and you're going to put the connections there, people have that option.
So,
Right.
what he's saying is when we loop it, we're obviously running in front of more houses, right?
Well, yeah, but that's not the intent necessarily.
I understand it's not the
But Jim
intent,
says you might
but
not have a choice in the intent of what people.
I mean, if it runs in front of your house.
You have the right to do it.
Anytime we'd loop something and put a new line in, if
That's
there's a
my point.
buildable lot, we put a lateral in.
that's my point.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we gotta stop thinking about the water that way, because
Right.
we're reaching diminishing returns on this.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Is that the looping, while it creates benefit to it, is going to increase the usage
Yeah.
significantly in terms of the
Costs more to
opportunity for
replace it,
people to
doesn't
hook up.
Right.
Yeah, we're getting to that marginal unit that bumps you into new.
I got a whole report that that has an
And that
explanation for
puts
all
you
of
somewhat
that.
in a quandary,
Sure does.
Okay.
which is why we need to have that meeting to talk about a
New
new
source
source.
development, yep.
So have we tortured Bob enough for tonight?
I don't think we tortured him. I think.
This is the only thing that,
It was lovely.
Oh, you do have a tie. You moved it.
Wait, it's alive. It's alive, it's alive. Thank you, Bob.
all right.
very much.
Thanks, Bob.
See ya.
Great job.
So we don't have the airport property discussion tonight. We don't have group coming.
We are going to get them in, though, right, at some point?
I'm hoping. Yep.
Town administrator report is up next. Mr. Hathaway.
You go right into action items. We have the annual town meeting schedule.
When's the election? Isn't the election the 6th? So the meeting is the 13th.
13th, 14th, in the column there, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, the 6th is technically town meeting because the election's warrant Article 1. So yeah, it's 13th. Excellent.
And we need to change it to 28th, because this was for last week,
Oh.
the
Okay.
open date.
I move to approve the annual town meeting schedule for 2014.
Second.
A motion has been made to open the warrant and approve the annual town meeting schedule. It's been made and seconded. Any discussion? No, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
It
We
basically means you've got 4 weeks to get articles in.
Right, because you're less, yeah, because it goes only to the February 20th, this is an important date. February 20th, right?
Schedule
February
last
20th.
year, so-
4 weeks.
Okay.
Cheated them out of a week.
Wow.
It's not new every year, it comes every year if you want to do warrants, you know, I mean.
This shouldn't come as a surprise to them.
Right. A warrant is, you know.
Oh, my God, we're going to have an annual town meeting. Please consider the Dunkin' Donuts Lions Road Race on April 27th. We have a request from the race director, Mr. Brian Hillfrank.
So considered.
This is the traditional.
Traditional, Chief Stone has approved the course.
I heard Mr. Bugby move to approve the route. A second.
Second.
Any discussion? Chief's fine.
Yeah, I signed on the thing.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
We request from the Norfolk Cultural Council to serve wine for 2 hours at an art show reception on April 5th, 2014. It's at the Norfolk Library Community Room from 5 to 7 p.m. The Juried Art Show. Mr. Bill Conklin is a licensed bartender, apparently. That's news to me.
was gonna
Licensed
say-
by who?
And I was gonna say, is he tips?
don't
I don't-
license them.
Right, we don't license. You
He
can't
may
get
be
the-
tip certified, but
Is the chief sign off on this one? Because I don't see anything approved by, Marion, do you know?
We didn't run it by him. We haven't had too much problem with the art shows at the library.
We've had them, we've done a number of these, it seems to be
Yeah.
popular.
They're not rowdy gatherings.
It said yes, no problem.
Okay.
With the others, so.
I move we approve.
Second.
the motion is made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
But it's becoming more popular, right? It seems, art shows, it makes sense, like I said, how are you gonna get, end up spending more money than you want to spend?
Maybe we could, if we offered wine here, we'd probably get a lot more people coming.
I think, that's, I so
We should
move.
do that. We'd have better conversation.
Move, who knows what you have in your, coffee, but.
Who knows indeed. All right.
One other update I had was the, we're continuing to go forward with the rec. I know we talked about that a little bit earlier, but the Regional Communication Center, we're focusing on because Rentham has a problem using the space at the Public Safety Building. They're concerned about the impact of the computers and the infrastructure that would have to go, computer space, radio space, et cetera, all the technology space. So we looked at, I guess, technically 4 more sites, but really 3 that we focused on, and one of the sites is in Rentham. It's a building that Rentham took by tax possession, and it's on Industrial Drive, which is off of 1A, off of 140, right down by the Franklin line. I think Scott Dietrich's old business was there, if I'm not mistaken. That
Oh, I know what you mean.
yeah, the restaurant
Yep.
is there. So if you go in Industrial Drive, there's a building right on the left.
Down near the Franklin Country Club.
Yeah. So it looks like a great building. It's just an old, it's a steel structure with metal siding. So we are having some discussions with now the 911 folks to make sure that they'll stay on board with if we change the location, because they've
Is it required, do you think, Jack, it was too early to know, any more or less retrofit, construction to get it to be?
Not a huge difference. A lot simpler, actually. I mean, so it's a
I know what you mean.
steel building.
Yeah.
You know, we'd have to skin it, and then just gut it. We don't know exactly what's inside of it. We know it's a cement floor, so there's not a lot to the building, and then we just have to put the skin back on and obviously insulate it, and then put the mechanics in. To me, and I'm certainly not the expert, but to me, that the cost shouldn't be outrageous compared to trying to jam and
Yeah.
fit into the public safety building and deal with all the mechanics that are already there. So I'm hoping that we're having the architect and the engineer go through that now and come up with the different cost scenarios.
Okay.
But as we're getting the state to pay for all of this, we're going to
gonna
make
say.
sure that they stay on board.
Does it delay it, does it not potentially delay it any, or? Probably not, again, it sounds like it's an easier build.
Potentially delays. I mean, we've been, this is a slow-moving process.
I was gonna say, because I thought it was kind of settled to where it was gonna be in Rentham. It seems, the last minute
Yeah.
it's changed.
I thought so, too.
Yeah, I haven't been in a lot of those meetings, but, I mean, that site has been the site for 2.5 years.
That's what I mean. It seems like why now is it doesn't fit.
Yeah, well, now that we got, in the last
And
6
now all of a
months.
sudden, there's a problem. What do we
well,
do what were they doing for the last 2.5 years?
Yeah, I share your frustration. But having the last 6 months, having the engineer on board and really going through the technology.
I mean, something changed? Did
about-
something dramatically
but-
change to reconsider it?
I thought it was the bell, maybe, no?
No, Belly definitely here. No, nothing changed other than kind of getting a more precise look at all the technology that would be needed and all the, not the technology in the room where the workstations are, but the technology out in the back room and the radio racks and all that. Rentham was willing to give up they have a bunch of the garage bays. They were willing to give up one of those bays. It looks like based on the technology analysis, they'd have to give up 2 of the bays and some other
So something did
some of the
change.
comments.
This
Well,
isn't political.
not political. It's more coming to terms with what the actual
Okay.
size and there's
It could happen, yeah.
this has been a good process. It's been there's a lot of people involved, so it's a kind of a frustrating process and one of the things that I think, for me anyway, has been the most frustrating is the discussions on technology, because you get a lot of experts, and they're experts in their little niches. You get a lot of experts involved, from the 3 towns, from the 6 departments, 8 towns and 4 towns, 8 departments. So you get all these experts who, manage their stations right now, and
When you think about it, the collective is a lot different. It is, really.
yeah, some of them think we could use that closet and put
Right.
everything in there.
And
We
sure,
got
and
another
it worked
guy
over
that
in your
thinks
little
it's
town,
this
right?
whole room. So it really is. So we did hire outside
kind of be the
experts who
arbitrator,
worked
yeah.
on the Shrek and worked on some other regional centers, and they're they've come to reality with what the real solution should be. So it's someplace in the middle.
Did anyone go to the rec panel at the MMA this weekend?
I did not. Been to those,
I did not.
Been to those
I
before.
went to the
They've been
Capitol.
very informative. Did you? Did you? I know you were
No,
at
I
the energy
didn't.
one on the
Doing some
community
other
one.
Although Jim Boudreau is an old friend.
Oh, Jim's a funny guy.
He is a very
Norwell,
funny guy.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
I think I've told the story. He's got a. He tells the story of, first day in work, somebody calls up and says, "There's a dead animal in my yard. Can you come take it?" And he says, being the new town manager, he says, "No, we don't remove dead animals from people's yards." Hangs up.
Private property, yeah.
5 minutes later, "Hey, can you come take a dead animal from the street out in front of my house?"
Smart guy, I like that, though. Think outside the box, though, as a resident, right? It's like, I know what you mean, it's private property.
He said, "We'll be right there." I did get a text. They found the dog. So,
Oh, Nelly?
Oh, good.
for those of you that were concerned.
Nelly.
Nelly, so it's been on Facebook, I followed.
Boink. Missed that one
It's
entirely.
on Facebook, Hillary posted.
Did you get the phone call?
No, I didn't know a phone call.
It was a phone call.
Oh,
Did a phone call
It was
today.
a phone call.
I have
First one
someone
I've
make-
ever
oh,
received.
I must have
yeah.
got today because it just stayed in my
Reverse
cell phone right now.
911?
It was a reverse
Yeah.
911.
Didn't hit my cell. Usually they
did.
hit my cell.
Yeah.
It didn't hit mine either. I don't know. Maybe they just did it to a.
It was. It only came to my. It
528.
only came to my house phone.
749.
Did not come to my
They went
cell.
out. I got a cell phone
I
call.
thought we had a
745.
policy about access of the reverse 911, and
They asked me.
were-
They asked me, and I said because it's been a couple of days and because of the cold weather, and there has been a lot of communication about this on Facebook.
okay.
They asked me, so I said yes.
Okay,
And,
as
and the
long
fact that we
as-
hadn't abused the system lately,
Lady, say for
It was time.
it felt like a good one to
I
do.
understand, and it's a good, worthy cause.
There you go. Okay, just want to make sure.
I figured there would be some
everyone
pushback
follows
from.
As a dog
I'm a
lover,
dog
somewhere.
jerks.
as a
I'm
dog
a dog.
lover,
No, no,
well
no.
done.
Hey, other people have that question.
It
No
worked.
dogs. No, they want to say it was
Well done.
emergencies. Me, I'm a dog lover too, or any of my little kids.
6-month-old dog out in 0-degree temperature.
Yeah, quickly.
If it was a cat, you'd be calling.
No. If it was a cat, it'd be mine. 'Cause I threw it out there. No. I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah, oh, geez. Your cell phone's
You
gonna
did it
ring now.
again.
I'm kidding.
Okay, you're gonna get all kinds of hate.
I
now.
love my cat. Anyway,
Okay, moving right along.
That is all I have, except for the Jane and Paul's committee update.
so the Jane and Paul's committee has been meeting, and the interesting thing is the Trust for Public Lands, which gets involved in land purchases all over the place. They're involved. They've been involved in farms, in neighboring communities. Are very interested in talking to Jane and Paul. So Chris LaPointe, who's the TPL person, has actually been chatting with them, and they're interested in putting some skin into the game and helping to purchase the easement when Jane and Paul are ready to sell. Now, the parcel across the street had been on the market. I can't confirm this, but I've heard it's not really on the market anymore. I mean, the sign may be up, I don't know. But at any rate, it's not under an imminent sale. So, the committee would like to have Chris come in and talk to us about what the process is, how Trust for Public Lands gets involved, how they put their money in, what kind of skin the town would have to have in the game, what could happen with the farm. There are, according to Trust, there are a lot of people who are interested in being tenant farmers. They would love to live at the farm and work it. And actually, that's what happens in Newton. They have a farm called the Angino Farm. I just got a job in Newton, so everything comes back to Newton. But for instance, we have a tenant farmer who's worked that farm, and he's hired by the farm group, and he's the farmer. So there are a bunch of people who are interested in doing that. So it's something to talk about, and I think I would love to have them in next opportunity we get. So.
And Jane and Paul
Chat
are here
about.
in front of us.
Not Jane and Paul necessarily. I don't know that they're ready for that kind of thing.
No, I mean, here they wanted to talk to us about, the selectmen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you meant your committee there.
Well, yeah, the committee is interested in coming and talking
Okay.
more. So one thing that crossed my mind, I haven't actually raised this with the committee, is depending on how big the Zone 1 is, the parcel that's across the street, that's only been intermittently farmed recently, could be a water source. And it's a water source not in an area we currently have water sources, so you're not going to be infringing upon your other, cones of whatever.
Influence.
Yeah, and is there enough room for the Zone 1 to be in effect with, and still farm across the street? So could you, because, I don't know that you could farm in a Zone 1. I was going to check it out over the weekend, but I never got in touch with the agricultural guys. So that would allow us to use some other funding to throw into the pot. That's not, CPC, it's not, if we're going to spend X amount on water anyway.
I'm not against any of that. I think it's a great idea to let them
It's
come in,
just an
but
idea.
I'm a little perplexed on this. I thought that the purpose of this committee was to maintain open communications with Jane and Paul
And they did.
and to explore all possible opportunities for the use of that land.
Yes, they have.
And yet the only thing I hear is tenant farming.
Oh, that's the only thing I mentioned. There's a bunch of, you could put, as you
And
know.
I'm not
when we did
against
the
that.
walk
I'm
around-
not suggesting I'm against that, but I didn't think it was the charge of this committee, and if it's not occurring, then it's a moot question. I didn't think it was the charge of this committee to predetermine its use and then pursue that use.
Nope. that use is in discussion because TPL has come forward interested in that use.
And they were willing to add some money.
And they're willing
And
to
that's
add some
fine.
money.
That's
So,
one option,
okay.
yep.
As
So
long as
if-
we haven't
if-
closed the door to whatever other
wanna-
options there may be.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to talk about buying it and putting soccer fields or whatnot, there's been some discussion about that, about the New England Football Club being interested in offering to build a turf soccer field. And they would use it 60% of the time, and we could use it 30%, 40% of the time. And there's also a housing option, if you'd like to put a bunch of houses up, CPC could buy it and put housing on it. There's been a lot of talk in the commission.
Why
in
would
the commi-
CPC buy it and put housing on it?
Well, because if it was affordable housing.
Oh,
That's what we did with Gums. Or you throw in Affordable Housing Commission money, trust money. But I think there's a lot of concern about Fruit Street and just how much traffic do you want to bump on Fruit Street?
agreed.
I don't know.
I'm not suggesting that what you're talking about isn't the right answer.
Yeah.
I don't know what the right answer is. I just want to be sure that, or at least as I understood, the charge of that group was to explore all alternatives. That may sift through and become the right answer. I'm not suggesting it is or it isn't. I just want to be sure we're not focusing in one direction.
Yep. A member really wants to talk about housing, one of the members of the committee. Loves the idea of putting a bunch of housing there. Another member of the committee loves the idea of soccer fields. And a couple of members of the committee think that it has, its highest and best would be a farm. So there you go.
Okay.
There's splits on the group.
I'm not on the group. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, and just to see, is there any other things that don't, again, I don't know, is there other things besides those things you mentioned? I don't know how you come up with
Maybe.
those ideas.
I mean,
Is there something else?
And to what degree
Yeah.
are Jane and Paul engaged in the conversation?
Well, we've had several conversations with them, and Crystal Point's been talking to them. And you know this because you were involved in some of the walk-around too, they're very kind of ambivalent about a lot of things. I don't know that they're ready to fully engage.
My guess is they're not at this point, but.
Yeah, so it's good to
Certainly the
have
behavior's been that way.
the ideas, I think it's good to have the ideas triaged, so that when they do become ready, we have a
I
better
agree.
idea. of what to do.
When the time comes, you want to at least be prepared to have options. I think they only farm about 25 or 30 acres of that
Well-
property now anyway.
See, I don't think so, because, he did corn, but they also did a significant amount of, they have a guy who comes in who does hay, separate from the corn, and then they've got the orchards, which are still active,
Right.
and they've got orchid, whatever it is, however you pronounce it, and then they've got the blueberries still active.
Right.
I think if you count the across wasn't that heavily used, except they did do
They
one
had
or two runs
corn.
of corn.
They had little corn over there. That's
Yeah.
all they had, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was selling vegetables, even though they were doing vegetables, primarily for their own use, but they had enough that over the
Yeah.
summer they were selling vegetables.
Well,
too.
the corn was out of this world. I was just thrilled to be able to go back and get it.
Okay.
My bias is I hope they hang in there, but anyway.
So this weekend was the MMA conference that we all went to, and a couple of really interesting things came up there. I don't know if you guys had anything you wanted to share. A couple of things I wanted to toss out.
No, go ahead, the budget.
Well, you go first.
All right. So there was a booth there with a guy who had parking meters. All right. Now, so these are before everyone gets crazy. So several years ago, the MBTA started opening up the parking lots and allowing municipalities to bid on them, for instance. So the parking meters.
I saw the booth. I know what you mean.
Well, there were two of them. The one with the
Yep.
So like if you go on Newberry Street, right, you go to the meter and you get that little piece of paper and you have to go back to your
Put it
car
in
and
your
stick it in
windshield.
the windshield. Well, the parking, that meter could do that.
Mm-hmm.
It could also do plate recognition. A lot of police forces now have plate readers. So they drive down the street and the plate gets dinged if the parking meter will talk to the police plate recognition systems and tell people, oh, he's over, he never paid, nail him. We could provide a much better service than the commuters are currently getting in those lots and turn it into some sort of
Talking about Old Town Hall?
well, no, I'm talking about taking over these babies. I know,
that an
particularly if
option?
it is, you can bid
Is that
on
an
them.
option?
Yeah, Dan Winslow
That
had
is an
talked to us
option,
about that, about
Yep.
3 or 4 years
Yeah,
ago?
the
did
MBTA
not
puts
know
them
that.
out periodically and allows anyone to bid on them. We could bid on them. Now, the cost of the meter was like $10,000, but you could do one meter at the station itself. So you go, and you don't even have to know your spot, for instance, because if you do the license plate option, it's by plate number.
Right.
Or you could do the spot, or on snow days, you do license plates, and on non-snow days, you do the pieces of paper. And people can be on their smartphones, so they don't even have to stop at the station. So they're running up to the station. They don't have to go to the parking kiosk and put in. They get on the phone, and they plop on the smartphone, and they
plug
pay
it
with
in.
their credit card right there on the way in on the train.
Yeah. Well, did you just say that's MBTA just as of February 1 anyways is going to meterless parking as it is? You have to all do it
Here?
by phone. Yeah, everywhere. MBTA in general is sending out flash reports.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
I think I'm on the alert system for the Franklin. I'm pretty sure I didn't read it because I'm not taking it anymore.
Didn't hear
It's
that.
something about you have to use smartphone for your parking.
You have to?
Yeah. I think. Go to MBTA.com.
Big brother.
I think. You can go to MBTA.com. There's something about that. At least on the
Well,
Franklin.
you don't have to do it now.
But either way, so
but,
they're already talking about that.
All right, so
idea.
I just thought that was pretty fascinating.
It is an interesting idea. I remember stopping by there, and I talked with them. It was a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
And the guy was telling me about the plate reader thing, but that's a fairly substantial capital investment at
Well-
the front end, but the return and the ease of use is tremendous.
So, yeah, how many spots do we have
I
here?
think the total is 500. It's
So 500.
$4 a day.
$4 a day, so that's $2,000 a day. I don't know what the VIG is for the T. You know, what do they take? Do they take 50%? You know, we'd have to invest in a plate reader technology, which the police would want anyway, frankly, I think. So anyway, it's just something to think about. Not, you know, I don't think we should think about this year, but down the line.
So is the plate reader on the
cruisers.
It's on the cruisers. It's okay. So it's not
Every
on-
cruiser, then you have to have a plate reader on every cruiser.
It's almost like a smartphone.
Yeah, I've never heard about the plate readers for parking before, but I've definitely heard about the plate readers that the police, some police departments have.
Yeah.
Some people are concerned that that's very Big Brotherish, but
It is, but, you know.
But
where we are.
I spin it as efficiency. Instead of someone walking down the street, getting out of there, and because it's less likely, you don't know how hard people might or might not want to work. If you just cruise around, it bings, automatically goes in the system, says that, you know, Mr. Regarity didn't pay, he's 50 cents overdue. If it all could flow through in an automatic fashion, it's great, right?
And the meters would take, they actually took real money, as well as the cards, as well as the smartphone thing. If the MBTA is going to make us pay, there's a ton of people still don't have smartphones.
No, I can't. I might have been reading it wrong, but it's bad enough shoving that the crinkly bill to a certain
And
size.
some of the people that have them don't know how to use them.
Yeah, that could be me.
Me too.
The other thing that's happening, there's a grant opportunity with the DOER for an energy manager. So they'll pay for 95% or whatever of the cost of it, and you can get a. Well, so I talked to MAPC and DOER there. DOER is Energy Resources, you know, MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. And they're actually really interested. Norfolk doesn't need a full-time energy manager. That's pretty clear. But if Norfolk, Rentham, and Plainville went in together, not only could this energy manager do a day in each of the towns, which would be completely adequate, frankly, they could also deal with King Philip. And King Philip, again, I don't know if you've heard me say this before. Midfield built a high school, 6, 7 years ago? They came back and recommissioned it and saved $50,000 a year on a new high school. There is money to be saved in these things, particularly if you can pay attention. So I talked to Bill Ketchum. I happened to catch Bill Ketchum.
we got Bill.
I got Bill. I got Kennedy, Charlie Kennedy,
Yes.
a
He sat
Rentham
next to you,
Selectman.
Jim. That was the guy sitting next to you.
I got all of the Plainville Selectmen, including Andrew Susi, and I got Joe Fernandez, and they're interested. Now, the thing is, we have to apply by February 14th. Again, we would end up eating about, I think about $5,000 all told. It's probably 10% of the salary, and it would be about a $50,000 position. So we, all 4 entities, King Philip and the 3 towns, would end up eating $5,000 this year. And then they would like you to make a commitment to fund this position in the future. From
How
what I
far?
heard,
How far?
it's
I was gonna
not,
say.
well, they haven't, it's not a rock ribbed or else. It's something where we go back to them and say, this didn't work out, we didn't save any money or enough money. So,
Tough job for somebody to take under those conditions.
well, there are people who are willing to do it. This
Well-
is not the first time they've offered this grant, and towns are doing it. Who is it? Arlington and Bedford are sharing a position, started sharing it last year. you know, and Arlington's a bigger town, Bedford's a smaller town, but they are splitting time between the two towns and actually coming up. I mean, we're leaving money on the table in this building. We've got a proposal to spend about $10,000 on lighting, was it, from Guardian, which has a payback of a year and a half. Was it a year and a half? It was,
Off the top of my head, I didn't think.
I mean, it was under a two-year
We were
payback.
getting to the point, weren't we getting to the point where the LEDs were coming out, and that was gonna.
Well, that was a $50,000 project, not a $10,000 project, but that is also, you know, a 20-year light bulb. But anywho, and it's not Jack's fault, but this is like item 732 on Jack's to-do list.
Or any
Well,
town managers, really, right?
I mean, I reached out to the other, I mean, going to the selectmen was the way to go, because I reached out to the other town managers, and none of them had any interest in doing this, so.
I was very compelling.
When you got his boss standing next to him, that it helps even more.
And what's the downside of looking into it?
Well, the downside, you know, I mean, depends on what the out-year responsibilities are. That's it. That's it.
I don't remember, and maybe we did, I don't remember talking about having King Philip in the picture too. I think that's a huge piece, because they're such energy users.
Your schools are where it's at. I mean, we are
Because I remember,
middling compared to the schools.
one of the courses I took, the teacher was an old Plymouth superintendent, and he hired somebody, and a big part of their job was walking around the building at the end of the day every day and shutting lights and computers off. And he said just that alone paid for the position. But,
Because
you
the
know,
kids are going to be
obviously
using
that's
more.
Plymouth.
You know, think about it, because KP with even Park and all that stuff, they wanted more wire, more line. That's going to, you know, these devices, I think, still suck power, right? Even though we have better lights, so I think their cost, in some cases.
Plug load is enormous, and the heating stuff is amazing how, frankly, you know, poorly institutional systems run after a little while if you don't do the constant commissioning and tuning and tweaking. I know, well, so Newton, again, sorry, built Newton North High School, right? $300 million high
And
school,
as I
was
said, I
it?
made the paper all the time. Huge amount of
Enormous.
money. Yeah, it's like
Enormous
it's like
building.
building a
Nice
city.
pool.
It replaced an enormous high school. It's a big school. And in their first year of energy use, it was up something to the tune of like 40,000 MMBTUs, which is millions of British thermal units. And they figured out, once they went through the commissioning of the building, they figured out, A, there was a filter issue, and B, it just wasn't
With
running
the
right.
windows open.
And now, this building, which has much more technology than the older building, which has much more heated space, because it's heated throughout, and the other building had all these voids in it that weren't heated. They're actually using 20% less energy, I think, in a larger building with more intensity. So if you have someone who knows what they're doing and can focus on it, you know, they'll go over to HOD, and I'll bet you they'll find a good chunk of money at HOD. And by the way, probably if they're an energy manager, they're going to focus on grant programs that would get us a boiler with some sort of money back on it. You know, they would have the time to go through the N-Star and the.
No, I agree. You already sold us. I mean, again, like Jim said, well, it's
I'm battering you into submission.
no, because
I know you have a passion, but what's the downside?
Right.
Say it
It's those
again.
outlier years that, you know, it's like the Quinn Building Day. It's a great program until the state pulls the money, and then suddenly, but again, we split the risk. It's
But
just
if,
sometimes
you know,
getting
and if we're
consensus.
splitting it three ways, even
Right.
not even charging King Philip. You
No,
know,
I agree.
and it's
Whatever,
like
it comes back to save us. You know.
17 grand a year, and we can save.
Go for it. Keep marrying
All right,
Baker.
so any other comments? We have to go into an executive session because to stay in a open session would
Minutes, do you want to do the minutes?
disadvantage us with respect to
Can we
collective bargaining
accept the minutes
or
first?
litigation. Yes.
I move to accept the minutes of January 9th, 2014.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. So, before we go into executive session, I'm, as you may notice, I sit in the middle this year because I'm the chairman, and it's a Norfolk convention that the chairman is the person in his final year of office. I'm in my final year of office as a selectman. I've been in office for 6 years, and papers go out next week. So, I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who I've served with, a long, distinguished list of selectmen. And more importantly, I'd like to thank Jack, but really people like Susan Jacobson, Joni Troinos, Marion Harrington, the town hall crew, Marie, Carol, Betsy, Christine, up in the video, Anne Marie, Joan. You folks have made it all really possible to deliver service to the people in Norfolk, and it's been wonderful being in this position. Kathy, Renee, I know I'm missing people, and please, Carol, please forgive me if I miss you. And the bosses, of course, like Cheryl and Joan and John Neese and Julie, Bob Bullock, Whitey Bulger over in the building department,
Chief Bushnell.
Chief Bushnell, the firefighters, Chief Stone, DPW. It's all been wonderful people who work for this town, and it's been a great experience. We've done, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of really neat stuff, a lot of stuff I'm proud of, and missed out on a lot of stuff I wanted to do. I think we left some things on the table, and it's disappointing. But, I think 6 years is enough, and it'd be good to get a new voice on the board. And I will not be running for re-election. I have a job that takes up a lot more time than the job I had when I ran for re-election. It's been fun, and I wish you all the best. And there's going to be a number of open spots this year. The one big failure is I don't know that we got, one big failure I feel from what I wanted to do is I don't think I was able to get more people into government. I think every year it's been a struggled, to get people to run for stuff. And we, if we want to keep this elected government, you have to take part. So that's been disappointing. I feel bad about that. But I'm going to move out and let someone else do this. It's been a pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you very much. And
Still got time. It's time. We can fix everything.
I move that we go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to litigation. Right?
Yes.
Yes, as an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body. So, roll call vote.
I'll second the motion.
Sorry, do a second.
Mr. Lehan seconds. Scott Bugby?
Scott Bugby, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Rob Garrity, aye. We will leave and go into executive session. We'll not be returning this evening. We will be back Tuesday, February 4th, which is next week.
See us again.
Thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure.